Hey everyone, you asked for it, and here it is, part 2 of The Boy from the Girls' School. If you've already watched part 1 and just want to jump straight into the continuation, check the description. I'll leave the timestamp there. Alright, let's get into the video. This is the story of a boy in a girls' school. Anyone who knows this story knows that this manhwa is very good. I think this is the manhwa with the most different waifus. Now let's get to the video. Have you ever thought about studying in a girls' school composed of beautiful girls? But there's a catch. They will do everything to get you out of there, a poor teenager. He ends up being transferred to this school. But what awaits him, hell or paradise? The story begins with Feng, our protagonist, chasing after a bandit. He and his friend give the criminal a beating. A friend congratulates them for recovering the victim's bag. While they're talking, they miss another friend who is with them. Then they realize that he is hitting on the girl who is robbed. His friends arrive and beat him up. The girl politely says her name and mentions that she studies at Chongnam Girls' School, and invites the protagonist to have dinner with her. Feng refuses and says that she should go back to her house carefully. Back at home, we see more about his family. Feng has a younger sister. Although they are neither rich nor poor, they manage to live a quiet life. When he arrives in his parents' room, he sees that they are there, sitting on the sofa. Then they say that they need to have a serious conversation with Feng. His father said that his son is already 18 years old, and that he now needs to take responsibility for taking care of his mother and sister. He thinks his father is sick and then starts to cry. But then his mother explains that 10 years ago his father took out a loan from the bank and the interest made the debt reach $100,000. Now he needs to find a job in the Middle East where the salaries are good so he can pay off this debt. Therefore he needed his son to take care of his family. At that time Feng said that the Middle East is a dangerous place and that there should be another way to get that money. And that's what his parents wanted to hear. They had already devised a plan to make their son study at Chongnam Girls' School, and he doesn't understand what this has to do with it. His mother then explains that she studied with the school principal, and the principal said that he could earn a scholarship for studying there. If he accepted, his sister could also enroll in the school, and this would solve the debt problem. And on top of that, there would be a great education for his little sister. So he ends up accepting, even knowing the bad reputation of the school where the students hate boys. He remembers the times he passed in front of the school and saw the boys asking for help. And this wasn't just once, it was several times. Feng decided to tell his sister this news, so he tells her that they will both study at Chongnam School. She said she already knew and asked him not to call her sister at school. During the night, he has a nightmare with this school, making him wake up. Scared, his mother says that he needs to go talk to the principal, so he goes. He is surprised by the place. Several people inside the school wish him luck. He gets tense when he hears these comments, entering the school and finally reaches the principal's office. When he turns around, he is surprised that she's very attractive. She says she has known him since he was a baby. The principal then hands him a confidentiality document. Feng should obey the school rules and not reveal anything that happened there. The second rule was very important. Do not use violence against the girls, and do not have romantic relationships. She says that all the boys who enrolled there before him only came to flirt. So he asks if, by chance, they attack him, what should he do? Take it like a coward. The principal says that self-defense is fine. He asks why a girls' school started accepting boys. And the reason is that the girls there have not learned to interact with boys, since they have never had contact. That's why they were now trying to change that. And she asks him to do his best to win the girls' trust. On the way out, the principal tells him to leave his suitcase in the dormitory and explains that he shouldn't get close to the old building, as it is a restricted area. Feng goes to the male dormitory and is enchanted by the view from the window. He sees a very beautiful place near the lake, so he decides to go there. Upon arriving, he sees a female uniform under a sword, and when he least expects it, a girl emerges from the lake. Feng can't help but stare. The girl gets scared and starts screaming, wondering why there's a man there. He tries to explain, but when she picks up the sword, he runs away and flees. Later, he meets his friends. They joke, saying they're surprised that he is still alive, then take a picture to record what his appearance was like in case he becomes unrecognizable. He then says that he has 2 pieces of news for Feng. The first is that the school has a lot of beautiful girls, and the second is that they are all like roses with thorns. Several students were defeated by them, and among them all there are 4 evil leaders who will do everything to make him give up studying there. The protagonist then prepares himself, puts on a cool wig, a chic suit, and makeup simulating injuries so that no girl has the courage to look for trouble with him. Arriving at the school, he only sees beautiful and imported cars, and at the entrance is the girl that he saw in a bikini the day before. He gets terrified and then decides to jump the wall inside the school. The teacher decides to introduce him to the class. He makes a speech to scare the girls, saying that his hobby is fighting and slicing people. that the last one who messed with him today has 3 kilometers of grass growing over his grave and then makes a disdainful face. But that didn't scare anyone. It was just ridiculous. The teacher tells him to sit next to Renelle and he finds that name familiar. The room becomes silent because of him. Then the protagonist decides to find these 4 evil leaders. Maya, Wei Wei, Tong Fei, Xiao Chui. Looking to the side, he recognizes the girl with pink hair, but she says she doesn't know him and for him to look the other way. Already in the student council room, the president of the council, Lan, the principal's daughter, says that they need to find some way to defeat the new student, and that all they need is to give it some time, and that the evil leaders will take care of him. Returning to the classroom, the teacher asks Feng and Chuxia Ye to go get the new books, but Chuxia Ye doesn't want to go and sends her friend in her place. The protagonist realizes that the girl there is being intimidated, so he strikes up a conversation with her, however she tells him not to talk to her there. He understands that if she is seen having friendship with a boy, she would be persecuted in the same way that he is. Upon leaving the classroom, she apologizes for the rudeness. He said that it's okay and that he only hopes that she doesn't set anything against him. The girl swears she won't do anything. Inside the room, the evil ones notice that the new student came prepared. San Shui says that she thinks it's better to leave him alone and let him have a quiet year of study. The other girls are surprised and disagree. They say that they will continue with the plan, but that they should take some care. One of them offers Feng a juice. He thanks her and says that he will drink it later. However, he was already smart and knew that it was a trap, so he saves the juice. At the end of the class, the lazy girl takes advantage of her friend again and leaves her cleaning the room alone because she says she is feeling sick. So the protagonist decides to help her, and he said that if she needs help secretly, she could count on him. Arriving home, Feng prepares for a bath, and when he least expects it, the girl from the day before, the one in the bikini, appears there catching him off guard. She also takes him by surprise and then starts screaming. The protagonist asks her not to scream and unintentionally he knocks her to the ground while trying to cover her mouth, but they end up getting too close. Then she hits him in his private parts and it completely destroys him. She calls him various names and he retorts saying that she was the one who entered his room by surprise. Then she asks him to face her in a duel since he humiliated her twice. She couldn't let him get away with it. He argues back, saying that each of them saw the other naked at least once, so they were even. The girl shouts for him to put something on quickly. She will wait for him at midnight in the training room. If he doesn't show up, he will suffer severe consequences. Feng stares at her and goes. Upon arriving at the place, the girl says she imagined that he wouldn't dare to miss it, and if he didn't come, his body would sink in Tokyo Bay. Feng tells her to end this quickly since he wants to go to bed early. She said that he doesn't need to worry because he'll be bedridden for at least a month when this is over. Then he mocks her and she goes for him at full speed. The girl's movements are fast, but the protagonist is faster, and when she least expects it, he is already behind her. Feng holds her very tightly, immobilizing her. He blows in her ear, leaving the girl with flushed cheeks, then he disarms her, thus winning the duel. Upon leaving, he says that if she bothers him again, he will fight seriously. The girl, dying of anger, says that she'll defeat him next time. Already in his dormitory, Feng has a bad feeling because of what happened, but he forgets about it and goes to sleep. The next day, he sees the 4 evil leaders in his room. He ignores them. Until lunchtime, the cafeteria is full of delicious food. However, all the students stare at him, leaving the atmosphere tense. When they finally find a place to sit, a girl with enchanting eyes appears, saying that he sat in her seat. He falls hopelessly in love, so he apologizes. She disdains him, telling him to leave and not bother her. Then he changes chairs and she says that all the places around her belong to her. Then he sits right in front of her and asks if she is capable of kicking him out. All the students around are shocked that he is standing up to her. Then the mysterious girl says she found him interesting. Feng thinks about eating quickly and getting out of there as quickly as possible. Then a gigantic banquet is served there for her, leaving him surprised. He starts to get worried about having caused too much trouble with someone important, his pink-haired friend. She hands him a note with her phone number and then leaves. Back in his dormitory, he talks to her on the phone. She says that he has caused a huge problem. The girl he offended comes from a powerful family, and her name is Chuxia Ye, and says that he should apologize to her and hope that she doesn't take revenge on him. He says that the offense has already been done, then hangs up the phone. Rich, powerful gang leader, all of this caused him a lot of fear. But what could she do to him? Castrate him, he wonders. At that moment, someone appears from outside his room and throws a sleeping gas, causing Feng to faint and fall to the ground. When he wakes up, he sees a scary guy watching him. Feng is tied up, and the kidnapper says that he was informed that the protagonist was harassing a girl, so he would have to be castrated. Feng is desperate and starts screaming. Then, someone passing by outside in the hallway hears the noise. Then they start knocking on the door. The kidnapper turns around annoyed because someone is hindering his work, and when he least expects it, the door collapses on his face. The girl who appeared for the rescue was the same one that Feng had seen in a bikini and challenged in a duel. He's afraid that she has come to take revenge, but she helps him and surprises him because of that. The atmosphere there is awkward. She makes it clear that she lost to him in the duel because she had been careless, but that next time she would not lose to a pervert like him. And the protagonist there is speechless with all that, and she insists on going to the training room to battle him again. However, Feng is smart, and pretends to be feeling sick there because of the kidnapping. Then she lets it pass, and the girl shows a little concern for him, asking if he wants help going to the infirmary if he's feeling very bad. And already outside, she is wondering who is that guy who was kidnapping Feng. He boasts about having tricked the girl and admits that she is indeed very pretty. Later that same day, the principal calls him saying that she has something important to tell him, so she goes to his room in person. He is startled when she arrives there. Suddenly the principal says that she has a task for him, and without hearing it, he refuses right from the start. Then she said that they will have to cut costs there at the school, and that the place for this year's excursion will then have to change. However, the girl from his class, Tong Fei, who's one of the evil ones, was the only one who was refusing to go, so the protagonist had to convince her. Then Feng refuses because he is afraid of getting beaten up. Then the principal said that he needs to use his charm. Then the protagonist says that he is a correct man, he would not do something like that. But the principal reveals that the new location for the excursion is a beach. Therefore the girls would be wearing bikinis. Then Feng is stunned there and begins to imagine what it would be like, right? Those beautiful girls on the beach all wearing bikinis. And the principal continues saying that if the school's budget explodes, they will have to cut his scholarship. Then the protagonist becomes very motivated to convince the girls, but of course, it's not because of the bikinis. He needs to convince them so as not to lose his scholarship, of course. Then the principal asks him to try his best, then leaves. Already in the women's bathroom, the evil leaders talk about Feng having escaped Chuxiaye's revenge. The pink-haired one says that the kidnapper was even killed by the boy, and the blue-haired one. Tong Fei says that he seems to be very attentive, since he had not even accepted the drink that she had offered him in the day before. So they will have to change their strategy. The girls choose Tong Fei to be able to seduce him and decide to wait for the right moment to attack. The next day, when he enters the room, he sees the 4 evil leaders there. He needs to convince the blue-haired one, Tong Fei, to go on this excursion to the beach, so he asks her that. She immediately refuses, but her friends step on her foot and give that wink for her to accept, since this will help in their evil plan. Tong Fei accepts, and the protagonist is surprised that it was too easy. He realizes that there is something strange there. He imagines if there is any plan of theirs, however he soon forgets, since the most important thing is to be able to see them in bikinis. After leaving the room, they discuss the reason why he called her to go to the excursion, so they deduce that he is a pervert and is interested in them. The pink-haired one says that if he really has bad intentions, it'll be even easier for them to deal with him. Then Tong Fei realizes that this would really facilitate her plan, and they all get excited there. Except for the purple-haired girl, because she doesn't want to participate in all of this. Feng then calls the principal and says that he managed to convince Tong Fei, and says that this mission was very difficult, therefore he deserved a prize. The principal said that she'll give him a great reward, then the protagonist is happy, thinking that it could be a delicious food. While he is using his cell phone, he sees an open door in the hallway and decides to snoop around, and for his nightmare, there was Chuxiaye getting changed. Feng is a very unlucky boy, right? Or rather, depending on the point of view, he is a very lucky boy. So he is shocked and thinks that his life there is all ruined now. So she is standing there without showing any reaction. And Feng remembers that the other time she had to send someone to castrate him because of a simple silly thing. So this time she could really order him to be killed. So he had an ace in the hole. He takes out his cell phone and takes several pictures of her and says that if she doesn't want these photos of her to be released, it would be better for her to leave him alone. Chuxiaye takes a grenade and throws it at him, and the protagonist is already there waiting for his death, right? But the grenade doesn't explode. Then she says that this bomb is an anti-data bomb, that now all the files on his cell phone have been erased. Then he takes his cell phone and checks and really erased all the data there. All the photos he had taken of her were erased. The girl says that the security camera filmed everything, from him breaking into the locker room to taking pictures of her, and if she sends it to the police, he would be arrested immediately. He said that now he only has to use his most secret ability, which is to humiliate himself on his knees. Then the girl takes advantage of him and asks him to lick her foot, and the protagonist goes. When he is about to lick her foot, the butler interrupts, saying that it is time for her to go to class. Then Feng makes a pitiful face and she lets him pass. She said that she will spare him, but he will have to obey everything she orders, so the protagonist said yes and leaves. Sweating cold outside, he thanks the butler for saving his face. And the butler pretends that he didn't do anything. His cell phone rings and he gets startled. Tongfei says there in a message that the excursion will leave tomorrow at 6:30 in the morning, and that he needs to sleep early to prepare. Then he's astonished that it is so early, and wonders if it is an excursion or a military training. In the women's dormitory, they're planning the plan. The message had already been sent, therefore Feng would arrive at the agreed location 20 minutes early. The pink-haired one says that it will be easy to deal with this virgin. Tongfei asks how she knows that he has never been with a girl. He could very well be a wild player. Then she retorts saying that Tongfei thinks that all boys are like wild animals, that he only approaches girls because he is already used to it, since he has a sister, and that when she acts, he'll easily fall into her seduction. The next morning he arrives at the marked location. He arrives very early and notices that there is no one there. Then he hears a scream coming from the gym. He runs, and when he gets there he sees Wei Wei, the evil one with pink hair, lying on the floor. Her underwear is on display, leaving Feng with flushed cheeks. He offers help. Then she says that she hurt her foot. He carries her to the infirmary. Then she whispers there in his ear, thanking him. He gets all goosebumps and tries to change the subject, asking why she got hurt. Then she explains that she went to get a towel and ended up bumping into the ball basket. He said that he will call the doctor to apply ointment there on her injury. Wei Wei says that there is no doctor at the school that day, so the protagonist himself would have to apply the ointment, so she immediately stretches out her foot, asking him to apply the ointment with a seductive voice. He gets tense and with flushed cheeks, but says it's okay. She thanks him, saying that he is very kind. Feng quickly applies the ointment and tells her to rest, then leaves, trying as much as possible to appear calm. Wei Wei tells her friends to be able to get out of there from the hiding place. The blue-haired Tongfei gets angry that he didn't try to do anything more with the girl, so she thinks it's better to just go there and beat him up. They discuss that they need to go slowly, as he could be suspicious since he helped Wei Wei today. Next time he wouldn't be so suspicious. Outside, Feng sees the other girls meeting. He finds his sister, but she is still angry with him and even asks him not to talk to her at school. Everyone there gets on the bus, then goes to the excursion. The girls agree to make him sit close to them when they arrive on the plane, and it works. He asks how her foot is, and she thanks him for saving her. Arriving at the airport, they take another bus to get to the hotel. Already at the hotel, they realize that there are not enough rooms for Feng to sleep alone, so Tongfei would have to receive him in her room. Wei Wei says that that will be great, and they start whispering a plan. Lan, the protagonist's sister, is alone in her room looking at a photo. Then her cell phone rings. It's a message from a guy saying that he heard that she is in the city on an excursion, and that he went there to tell her about a certain Yao. Already in the room, together with the evil Feng, he's embarrassed there with the silence. He asks if she prefers him to sleep in the hallway, and she says that that is much more permissible. Then he gets scared there with her facial expression and decides to leave the room. He changes and goes to the beach, hoping to see some bikinis. However, the beach is empty. He hears someone calling his name, and when he turns around all excited, he sees them dressed in diving suits. Then the protagonist is extremely disappointed. He asks where the bikinis are. Tongfei says that today is diving day. Then he falls sad there on the floor and asks if she is not going to swim either, and the girl replies that she will be supervising them. And the protagonist there is without any reaction. Then Feng sees his sister going somewhere and he decides to follow her. She meets with Yan Sheng, which makes the protagonist very nervous. The guy said that Lan is very beautiful, and she responds by telling him to say soon about Yao. Then he decides to tell this story. Yao was in love with him, but she knew that he liked Lan, and in order not to break their friendship, he kept everything a secret. After Feng found out, he blackmailed Yao to be able to go out with him, but she refused. Then Feng pushed her down the hill. Lan asks how he found out about all this in detail. At that moment, Feng appears and punches the guy, and he flies far away. Feng tells him to stay away from his sister. The protagonist chokes the guy and threatens him and then throws him on the floor. The guy is trembling with fear and runs away. Lan then asks what her brother is doing there. And the protagonist repeats talking that this guy is not good and for her to stay away from him. Then she responds that she needs to know about Yao, and he says that he argued with Yao and unintentionally he accidentally made her fall down the hill. His sister runs away, calling him a murderer. Feng says that the secret cannot be revealed, and that he hopes that the guy has not told anything that he should not have. Since there were no bikinis there on the beach, he decides to return to the hotel. However, on the other side, Tongfei tells the girls that Feng is no longer nearby, and that they can all take off their diving suits, thus remaining only in bikinis. Feng, in the middle of the road, he feels that he is losing something, but even so, he goes away. The girls take advantage of the beach. The evil ones devise a plan to defeat the protagonist. They will put a drug in his food. At the end of the day, they go to the kitchen to prepare the dish, since he would never accept to eat anything that they give him. Then the red-haired one will distract the cook, so that the blue-haired one puts this drug. Everything goes as planned. Later, at dinner, Wei Wei asks where he was, since they all took off their diving suits and she would like him to see her in a bikini. He disguises it there, saying that it was a pity, but inside he is burning with anger. One of the girls goes stealthily there and puts drugged food on Feng's tray. Then he eats. Later, he says goodbye to Wei Wei and goes to his room. He thinks vaguely about how salty the food was. When he opens the door, he sees Tong Fei lying down, so he also decides to lie down and sleep. She's attentive, waiting for the drug to take effect. Meanwhile, the other three are outside also waiting for the drug to make him attack her, and the three outside would catch him in the act. Another 30 minutes of time for the drug to take effect, pass, and nothing happens. Half an hour also passes, and nothing. He's sleeping like a stone. An hour later, they're already dying of sleep and find it strange that the drug has not had any effect. The next morning, Tong Fei is finished. Feng gets up and sees her sleeping, then decides to have coffee first. When he opens the door, he sees the three sleeping there in the hallway. The protagonist takes them to their rooms, then covers them and goes to have his breakfast. There in the cafeteria, he eats almost all the food. Later, the girls gather to discuss why the drug did not work. They were exhausted. Due to the poorly slept night, they theorized that he must practice meditation, so the drug had no effect. And to be sure that the drug works, the girls were going to test it on someone. They go to a bar to test the effectiveness of the drug. They end up finding the victim, and it is Yan Sheng, the guy who had been beaten by Feng the day before. Wei Wei sits next to him and they start talking. She finds him very disgusting, and it costs to stay there near him, and when he least expects it, she had already drugged his drink. Then she says goodbye and goes away outside. She complains about how that guy was an idiot and that just wait 5 minutes for the drug to take effect. Time passes and he appears there on the sidewalk out of his mind. The boy sees Chuxia Ye and her butler, then goes on top of her to attack her, but the butler he manages to immobilize him. He keeps calling her beautiful while he drools. Chuxia Ye says to take him so that they can investigate what is wrong with this boy. The evil one with red hair said that they can already consider that boy as dead. Meanwhile, Chuxia Ye calls Feng and says that she has a task for him. The protagonist goes to the hotel where she is staying. Arriving there, he is received by his butler. He asks why she needs him. She says she has a case for him to solve. The girl says that she was attacked by a madman in the street. The protagonist makes a joke saying to pity the poor guy. She asks what he said and Feng makes an excuse. She then orders him to interrogate the harasser along with Lawrence, her butler. He asks what he should do, then it is said for him to just observe. When they arrive, he sees that Wang Chung, the butler, asks if they know each other and the protagonist says yes, but that they are not intimate. Then the torture begins. 3 hours later, all that ends with the protagonist. He's afraid since Lawrence did not ask any questions, just hit the boy. He reports to Chuxia Ye that the boy seems to be just any pervert and that he was drugged so that he would attack the prota. He wonders how he found out about all that. The butler says that Feng knows the boy, which makes the girl suspicious. Feng says that they hate each other and that he wants to kill that guy for a long time. The girl asks why they hate each other. He gets nervous, then disguises it, saying that the boy there stole his snack. That's why they hate each other. She finds this answer very suspicious, but ends up ignoring it. She says she wants to eat rice with coconut, and for the protagonist to get this fruit. If he doesn't get it, she'll expose his criminal video. The protagonist said that he will complete this task, then runs away. The girl and her butler comment that he is hiding something. Feng says that now that Wang Chung is in the hands of Chuxia Ye, he will not be able to get close to his sister, but he needs to find out what the guy said to Lan, because if she ends up asking something again, he may end up revealing things that he shouldn't. Meanwhile, Nanong, the evil one with purple hair, asks what Ranald thinks of Feng. The pink-haired girl says that she finds him gentle, but avoids talking much about her friend. She says she wants to eat coconut and asks Ranald to arrange it for her. The girl asks if by chance she knows how to cook, and she responds that she'd just bring the ingredients for her to check her culinary skills. In the next room, they discuss the reason why the drug didn't work on Feng. The red-haired girl says that maybe he doesn't like girls. Tong Fei says that it may be that he lost his functions as a man, and this leaves them all embarrassed. Then she said that she will have to test him by going to his room. She asks what Feng will do tomorrow since they will have a free day. He thinks about going to get some coconuts, then the girl sends a message to Wei Wei so they can make a plan. Wei Wei says that all together they will test Feng's functions. Then they whisper about a plan. During the night, someone breaks into the room and messes with Tong Fei's bags. The next day, he goes to get the coconuts. He complains about having to spend this beautiful morning looking for something for a girl like that. The evil ones end up following him when they find a coconut tree. He sees Renel, his pink-haired friend, trying to pick some coconuts, so he decides to help. After picking up some units, the girls arrive and ask what the two are doing there alone. Then he jumps from the tree and responds that he was just collecting coconuts. The girls say that they were playing volleyball, but they needed one more player and that he couldn't refuse. Renil trips and ends up falling on top of Feng. The other students around see and go to check what is happening. Renil apologizes and he says that everything is fine. When the other girls arrive, they see Feng's abs and are delighted. The evil ones take advantage of the opportunity and start provoking him to be able to seduce him. He gets all embarrassed and all of them start wanting to put their hand on his belly. He has no reaction. And the three evil ones say that their hunches were right. That's why the drug didn't have any reaction. He makes an excuse and runs away. He says that he was lucky that he didn't have any reaction, but then it hits him and he realizes that he is too young not to have shown any reaction. And he thinks that the reason for this was the kick he received. Renil arrives at his room with a coconut. Lanong says that Feng's suffering is just beginning and asks Ranil to bring the protagonist to her. Renil asks why all this, and she responds that if he doesn't show up, something terrible will happen to him. Then, she agrees and runs to get the protagonist. At this moment, he wonders what he should do. Then the butler finds him saying that they were waiting. He delivers the coconut and says that he is leaving. The butler shows concerns and said that if he needs any help, he can count on him inside the room. Chusia asks if her butler discovered any more information about that pervert. He responds that he didn't, and that he needs to interrogate him more. They also agree to investigate Feng since he seems very suspicious. Back at the hotel, Ranil waits for Feng at the entrance. She says that Nanong called him to be able to talk about something important. He's scared but ends up accepting. Arriving there, they talk about her being able to help him. As she has the powers to see the future, she could be very useful in helping him, so he begs the girl for help. She says that if he cooks for them, maybe she'll even help him. Then he goes to the kitchen and makes a very beautiful banquet, and when they try it, it is really delicious. He confesses that he learned to cook because his mother's food was terrible. After eating, Feng asks what he needs to do to solve his problem. Nanong says that he has to wait at the entrance of the hotel at midnight, that a man he already knows will appear and this man will be able to help him. The protagonist then goes to the indicated location at midnight and is walking in circles there until someone appears. When Lawrence finally appears, the butler Feng asks if he can count on the butler's help, since someone who can see the future said that someone would appear there and they would help him. He calls the protagonist to sit down. Feng explains everything he's going through, from the problems at school to the girls. Lawrence says that it will not be easy, but that he can help him, but he wants something in return. What he wanted was not difficult. The only thing he asked for is that Feng continue to cause problems for his mistress, Chu Xia. He's frightened with what he hears and asks if he is serious. The butler confirms and smiles. Feng refuses because he doesn't want to be killed. Then Lawrence says that he doesn't need to worry because he'll protect him, and his mistress needed to be educated, since she was used to everyone serving her and treating her well, but that wouldn't be good for her in the future. That's why she needed someone to stand up to her. The protagonist asks how he would necessarily do that. The butler says that tomorrow they will go to an amusement park, and that the protagonist needs to hinder her in everything she is going to do. Then the protagonist accepts the agreement. He will do everything to hinder the dangerous and mysterious Chuxia. So, the day of the visit to the park finally arrives. Chuxia is complaining about the loud noise of the park, and her butler starts to accompany her to every side, and at the time that she is going to confirm the reading of the bracelet there at the machine. Feng appears to hinder her, since this was his plan, right? He disguises it saying that he didn't know that Lan was there today, and she asks what he is doing there. And he responds that this is a thing of destiny. Yeah, right? Then he asks if she wants to have fun together with him, and she says no, that it's for him to be alone. Then he already starts to get nervous, thinking that his plan will not work. But he has the brilliant idea of inviting her to go on the roller coaster. He imagines that she'll be scared. Then he asks if she has the courage to go with him. She accepts, then they go together on the toy. When they arrive at this toy on the roller coaster, he is dying of fear and starts screaming. Meanwhile, she remains calm, as if nothing was affecting her, and after leaving the toy, he's even feeling sick. Even so, he doesn't give up on the plan and calls her to enter the scary cave there. She even seems happy when she sees these monsters, these ghosts. Meanwhile, he even faints from so much fear, having the butler carry him in his arms. And Feng seems to be very persistent because he accepts to go on the Viking ship with her, and he also faints there and starts crying with fear in all the toys that they go to. Who passes fear there? Who gets desperate as Feng in this last toy there? It seems that even his soul leaves his body for a few seconds. He even said that if it continues like this, he'll probably die. Lawrence, the butler, even asks Chuxia if she's liking the tour, and she responds that it is very boring. Then he says that he thinks it's better for them to rest before going to the next toy. Then he notices in the distance an ice cream cart and decides to go there to buy it for them. On the way back, while he was carrying 4 cones of ice cream, Lawrence puts his foot in front, making him trip. Then he drops all those ice creams on top of Chuxia. He is in shock there, and thinks that that may be his end. Probably he'll already be dead, and she continues there, quiet, without showing any reaction. and he gets all tense, wondering what the heck she's gonna do to him. Then a tear rolls down her cheek as she says the word daddy. The butler pops up right there, while Feng's apologizing like crazy. Then she bursts into tears, with her face and clothes all covered in ice cream. Right then we see a flashback of her as a kid, with ice cream all over her mouth and a woman with her hand on her head. Back in the present, the butler Lawrence says it's time for them to head home, and she leaves crying. When they pass each other, Feng gets a little note saying, "Meet me in the hotel lobby tonight," and the girl walks off all bummed out. Later that night, the butler meets up with the main guy at the agreed spot, and he hands over the pill that he promised as payment. The main guy thinks about asking if the girl's alright, but the butler cuts him off saying, "She's not feeling too hot, is she?" The main guy then slams his hand on the table, calling him a liar, questioning what the butler's really up to, and he retorts, saying that all of this was for the good of his young lady, and that sometimes stimulus therapy can be helpful, and that she deserved a better life than the one she has now, which is covered in shame. Feng just stands there, not understanding anything, and the guy just leaves anyway. At night, we see Chu Xie there. She's having some nightmares while she sleeps. The next day, her butler wakes her up with breakfast. It's 8 o'clock, and he asks her if she slept well, and she tells him to cut the crap. She really seems to be a tough cookie, so she asks if there's any news about that pervert, and the butler says they're still investigating. Then we see what happened to Feng. That night, when he got back to his hotel, he was worried about Chu Xie and about what her butler said when he talked about her living a life covered in shame, but when he got to his room, he saw the students there, and the headmistress too. So right away, he smelled trouble, right? And he started to get nervous. The headmistress said she stopped by after the trip and that she couldn't believe how disgusting he was. So he starts to get even more worried, not understanding at all what's going on. The main guy immediately defends himself, saying that he was out all day, so whatever happened, it wasn't him. The evil leader there with the red hair, she said her belongings were stolen, and he was the only suspect in that room. He said it sounded like a soap opera. So the girl with the blue hair tells him to prove his innocence. He immediately said he'd prove he was innocent, so he opens his bag and inside he sees a pair of panties. And then he starts to tremble with fear. He quickly goes and closes his backpack, and he wonders if what he saw was an illusion, since he was really nervous, so he opens the backpack again, and he really sees that the panties are there. He turns almost purple from how nervous he gets, so they all start attacking him, calling him a pervert. But Nanong, the evil leader with the purple hair, she's thoughtful. She doubts if he's really guilty. Renil, the main guy's friend, is passing by in the hallway and saw a crowd at the door. Even the other girls outside were yelling at him, calling him a pervert, disgusting, a panty thief. And Ranil sees that her friend is being attacked and then decides to help. But at that moment, Lawrence appears, and all the girls there are already super in love with him. So Feng comes out desperate, asking for help, and the butler explains to everyone there what happened. He really had spent the whole day there with him, so they understand that he wouldn't have had time to commit this crime and so still spend the whole day at the park. But they aren't satisfied with that, and say that in fact he's the only suspect. It couldn't have been anyone else. And the headmistress walks up to the backpack and she seems to have found something there. The main guy says that he always does his family's laundry and that seeing panties isn't new to him, so he wouldn't have any reason to steal. The girls say that that argument actually makes sense. And then they ask who this panty thief is. The headmistress crouches down and picks up a little gold pendant. The girls there protest, asking for clarification, and the headmistress yells at them to shut their mouths. And she said that since Feng has a good reputation, she's going to handle this confidentially, and that everyone there could go back to their rooms. Then she calls the main guy to talk to her alone, and already outside, she, embarrassed, admits that she knows who did it. It was her daughter, who's the student council president. He gets all awkward. She reveals that she found out because of the pendant that was at the scene of the crime. The headmistress then says that her daughter doesn't trust men because of her father's job. Her father worked a very dangerous job, and he had to distance himself from his family to not put them in danger. From then on, she doesn't trust any men. So the headmistress takes the main guy's hand, asking him to help her daughter to trust men again. But she holds it really close to her body there, and Feng gets nervous and pulls his hand away. She quickly winks and says she trusts him, and he immediately retorts, saying she doesn't need to trust him, since that task is really difficult. And from afar, we see that girl with the swords. She's spying on everything, so she goes back with information, and she passes all this information to the student council president. The headmistress's daughter, the girl says there to her friend that her mother is talking to Feng about her, and she starts to get angry, saying that her mother is messing up her plan. While she was complaining there, the girl with the swords asked her to put some clothes on, since she's there without any clothes on. Nanong in the other room, she calls the other evil leader's attention, saying that it's proven that Feng is a decent guy, so they can stop bullying him. So they agree and say they'll stop it. Already the evil one with the red hair, she says that Feng seemed to be panicking when he got there, and he replies that it's because you found out too much. The headmistress said she has big news to give to everyone there, that she's going to switch Feng's room, and Feng is happy with this news, right? Later, the evil one with the blue hair asks Renelle what she thinks of Feng since they're pretty close, so she's there with her cheeks blushing, and she says that Feng is a good person, that he's very special to her, since he's helped her several times. So this evil one with the blue hair, she's thinking if that's true or not. She also doesn't totally trust the main guy. Now he's moved into the Nanong's room. He asks her for help, and she hands him a small bag and says that he can only open it if the case is really urgent. So he starts jumping there with happiness, saying that now he's saved, that he finally has some girl there who he can trust. On the 5th day of the trip, he decides to eat that pill that the butler gave him. After putting the pill in his mouth, his vision starts to blur and he passes out. Nanong hears all that, so she goes to see what happened. When she arrives, the main guy is there all confident, handsome, and says he's going to get breakfast. He shines so much that Nanong even puts on a welding mask there so she won't go blind, since he's radiant. On the way back from the bakery, he meets the 4 evil leaders. When the one with the blue hair sees him, she pounces on him in a really violent way and apologizes for what she did last night. Pressing him against the wall, she said that he'll need to behave himself for the rest of the trip, and he agrees, saying that it's okay. His heart is racing, but he feels a certain relief, and already getting close to the hotel, he meets Lawrence. So he runs to hug him. Lawrence says he has a mission for him. His young lady asked him to participate in a beauty contest tomorrow, and he'll have to win that contest. The main guy retorts, saying that he has no chance of winning since it's a female beauty contest, and the butler said that his young lady asked, so he'll have to comply anyway. Feng refuses, saying that this mission is impossible, and the butler asks if he really wants to disappoint Chuxia Ye. He replies that he has no interest in playing these stupid games with her, and Lawrence says that he is exactly the kind of person he's looking for, someone who has the courage to say no to his young lady. However, Lawrence says that Feng took that pill and that to continue the treatment he needs to take another medicine, otherwise he'll die. And that medicine is part of the prize there at the contest, and another prize at the contest is 300,000 won, and also the right to include a new rule in the school regulations, so the main guy gets motivated there, since that money will help with his family's debt. So he accepts. He gets so motivated that he transforms into a Super Saiyan, but he asks how he's going to participate in a female beauty contest, and the butler says he doesn't need to worry, since that task won't be difficult. So he starts approaching the main guy there, and he starts screaming, asking for help. And on the day of the contest, the students are there calling the guys' attention, right? Since they're all dolled up, they're there even when they're bleeding from so much emotion. At that moment, a beautiful girl with purple and mysterious hair appears, and all the guys there fall in love at that moment. So we already imagine who this mysterious character might be, right? So the contest is about to start, and Chuxia Ye and the headmistress's daughter ask the butler there if the contest has already started, and he said that it hasn't yet, and that some preparations are missing. The evil one with the pink hair, she's getting changed, and her friend is staring at her, observing her body. Tong Fei with the blue hair, she's in the corner, super focused. She's really determined to win and be in a first place, and all the others are scared, since she seems very determined. They comment on what they'll do with the money. One of them is going to use it to decorate her family's bar, and the others are just participating for fun. Meanwhile, Nanong's playing her video game, Carefree, until she sees Ranel changed. She gets embarrassed there, asking her friend not to stare at her, and Nanong says she has a very beautiful body. So the contest begins, and the host welcomes everyone and starts calling the beach models who are the participants there in the contest. The first to enter is Ranel, then Lan, the protagonist's sister, enters, and everyone in the audience falls in love. The third to enter is Nanong. Meanwhile, in the back, a bunch of delinquents are watching the contest. All the other participants have already entered the stage, and only Chuxia Ye was missing. The other students there are surprised, since they had never seen that student at school. Then that bunch of delinquents invade the stage and try to kidnap Lan, the protagonist's sister. So she slaps the leader in the face and he retaliates by hitting her, and he hits her so hard that she faints. At that moment, that mysterious purple-haired participant is revealed to be Feng. Who would have guessed, right? And he immediately gives a punch there, extremely powerful to that delinquent. So he takes off the disguise and beats up all the other vandals, and they're there passed out on the ground. The protagonist picks up his sister and takes her to the hospital. He asks the doctor there if his sister will be okay, and the doctor replies that she just fainted, that he can stop worrying. At that moment, Lawrence arrives at the hospital. He tells the main guy that he's responsible for everything that happened, and the main guy gets furious, burning with anger, and calls Lawrence outside the hospital so they can resolve everything. So they start fighting. The fight between the two there is pretty balanced, And the butler said that he was right about the protagonist. He was exactly the ideal type of person, the person he was looking for. He said that all of that was really part of his plan, but he apologizes because he didn't imagine that his sister would be attacked. So he hands over the medicine to the protagonist as part of the payment. Feng grabs the butler's clothes there and gives a really strong punch to his face, saying that he won't forgive him for what he did. At that moment, Chuxiaye appears. The butler reveals that he has always been by his young lady's side like a true brother. He also witnessed the tragedy that changed her life, but that now he's not in a good position to be able to help her. That's why he needs someone to replace him. And she's there outside, listening to everything. Then she appears and tells them to shut their mouths. She scolds her butler, telling him not to take any action behind her back, then asks him to leave with her. In the morning, the protagonist wakes up to a pretty unusual scene. He was sleeping in his sister's lap, and she seemed pretty worried about him. She disguises it, telling him not to worry since she's fine. He's happy to see that she's healthy, so she tries to thank him, but at that moment, when he opens the door, several of her classmates are there outside. They all spent the whole night there waiting for news of their friend. On the way back home, already at night, he meets Ranel, the girl who's his friend with the pink hair. She seemed a bit indecisive when choosing an item there to buy, so he decides to help her. He asks if she's shopping alone, and she said that she wants to buy a souvenir. So he offers to help, and she accepts and asks him if it's a gift. And she replies that yes, it's for someone very special, someone who took good care of her. So he suggests a wooden pig, but he gets embarrassed, saying that it's a bit strange, and she says no, it's actually quite cute. So she decides to buy that one. Back to the hotel, she stops in the middle of the way. She asks if he remembers the first time they met. He said yes, it was when she was robbed, right at the beginning of the story, folks, in the first episode. She, all embarrassed, said that she owes it to him, since he had helped her many times. But she never had the opportunity to return the favor and say thank you. Amidst the fireworks, in a very romantic atmosphere, she thanks him, saying thank you, and extends her hand, handing him the gift. Feng's sister meets with an old friend of hers. Her friend speaks well of her brother and tries to ease the argument that happened, saying that if he did something bad, he must have had some reason to do it. So folks, we're already wondering, did he really kill that girl? What could have happened, right? And she mentions that she's going to move to her friend's school there, this new girl. So we already move on to the part of Feng taking his medicine there, on the balcony of his room in the hotel. And he looks down and sees Tong Fei, that evil one with the blue hair, about to enter the pool with a float. He wonders if she doesn't know how to swim. Since the last time they went to the beach, she also made excuses there not to swim. So he already sees that this could be an opening, and Feng starts to plot an evil plan. At that moment, the float slips from her, and she starts to drown. So Feng, even from up there in the apartment, he jumps down into the pool to save her. So he goes and manages to save the girl and brings her out. He comments that thanks to her, he jumped from a building, and she replies that she owes him one. At that moment, we realize that the other evil one is there in the background, observing everything. Later, she makes the call there to gather all the students for them to leave this trip. The next day, while Feng is walking down the street thinking about how crazy this trip was, he gets curious to know what's inside that little bag that Nanong gave him, since she has the power to predict the future. At that exact moment, a little girl crosses the street distracted with her balloon. And without her realizing it, a car comes at high speed, and the protagonist manages to jump and save her. However, something very bad happens. Feng ends up being run over, and in the hospital he wakes up confused, not knowing where he is. His friend goes to visit him and jokes, saying that he didn't think he would survive the accident. Feng starts to remember the moment he was walking down the street there after the beauty contest. While he was holding the bag, he glimpsed the little girl running after her balloon, and without thinking twice, he jumped to save her from being run over. His friend there tries to pull a prank, saying that he was in a coma for 3 years, but Feng quickly realizes that it's a joke because of the label there on the water he was drinking. So his friend tries to tease him in another way, showing a photo there that he had of Feng dressed as a woman because of the contest, and his friend then takes a punch in the stomach, and Feng ends up breaking his cell phone. His sister's friend arrives to visit, and they ask how he managed to pass this test in the contest, and he says that Chuxia Ye's butler had some contacts. So they're all intrigued there, right? What must have happened? Days later, when Feng arrives at school, all the students there at the school are gossiping about him for having participated in a female contest. And at the press conference a few days ago, Chuxia Ye tried to defend the protagonist. She said that he was part of the security team there at the event, and that he ended up sacrificing his dignity for the school, which ended up making some girls there start to admire him. The girls there started to like him more, and arriving at school he sees the 4 evil leaders there, and he starts to devise a plan to be able to take revenge on them. Tong Fei with the blue hair, she sees the protagonist passing by, and she asks him if he's feeling better, but the protagonist ignores her. And during the welcome meetings there, the headmistress announces that there will be an exchange between the schools. 3 new students will enter the school who is a friend of the protagonist's sister, an old friend of his, and another boy. And on the way back from the room, Tong Fei, she wonders there what's wrong with Feng, right? Since she had talked to him, he wasn't responding, and she wonders if it's because of the accident he suffered. So she goes to his desk there after class and calls his name. He realizes that this is the perfect time for him to put his plan into practice. So he stands there wondering who she is, and she ends up getting shocked, asking if he has amnesia. She asks if he lost his memories because of the car accident, and he replies that the doctor said that memory loss was a sequela of this accident. He mentions that he only remembers the classroom and then asks who she is. So she introduces herself and gets a little confused. She doesn't really know how to react, she even seems a little sad. However, Tong Fei leaves and he starts to brag, saying that he's a great actor. His friends realize that he's lying, so he asks Nanong how she found out, if it was because of her power to predict the future. And she said yes. So Feng says that he didn't expect them to find out so quickly, but he said that he believes that they'll support him, that they won't tell the girls that he's lying. While he's passing through the hallway where his sister studies, he sees her talking to other girls, and he's happy to see that she's doing well there at school. When he returns to his room, his friends start to make fun of him, imitating the time he said he had lost his memory. Renil calls him to a corner and asks if he's also forgotten her, so he decides to tell Renil the truth, to make her feel more at ease. His friends say that pretending to have lost his memory won't bring him any advantage, and he retorts, saying that everything will be fine, as long as the evil ones believe him. At that moment, Feng saw a ball coming there in the direction of the school. He sees that it's a somewhat mysterious object, so he grabs Renil and throws himself on the ground. The ball passes very close to Chuxia, who's at the end of the hallway. Unfortunately, Renil ends up getting hurt, so he asks his friend to quickly get a handkerchief for him to tie there on the wound. So they bandage her up, but Randall starts to feel sick. She feels some dizziness, so the protagonist puts her on his back and takes her to the infirmary. Some blocks away, we see Lawrence interrogating the shooter. Some days before we see that this shooter was being hired to shoot Miss Chuxia, the contractor says that she's the daughter of someone very important and orders him to hurt her, shooting with a baseball. Chuxia was already feeling that something strange was about to happen, so she orders Lawrence to investigate the school. Therefore, at the moment that the shooter was planning to shoot Chuxia, the butler there appears and thwarts him. The fighter even tries to fight Lawrence there, but he ends up losing without any chance. Meanwhile, in the infirmary, Reno receives a better dressing, and they wonder how a baseball ended up in that window. So the headmistress appears there together with Nanong and says that the police are already investigating the case. The headmistress also mentions that she talked to her parents, that since they are not in the city, it will take a little time for them to arrive. Reno starts to tremble and says that it's okay. Outside, Feng realizes how she reacted when she heard about her parents, so he thinks that she doesn't want them to show up. Soon after, he changes his mind and says that since he's spending a lot of time with the girls, maybe he's getting too sensitive. His friends appear there outside and say that now that Renel has left, he doesn't need them anymore. His friends mention that the school is full of girls, and ask if he's already thought about getting a girlfriend, but he replies that he hasn't thought about it yet. So his friend gets nervous and asks if Feng has some erectile dysfunction problem, and little does he know that that's exactly it. His friend decides to show his charm there to the protagonist, and points to the headmistress's daughter, saying that he's going to ask her out. So he goes there all charming and asks if he can have the honor of going out with her. She replies that yes, of course. And at that moment, the entire disciplinary committee there at the school appears, and she says that she's going to choose the place. So she suggests the student council room. She scolds the boy there, saying that he's an idiot for flirting right on the first day of class, then orders the girls to teach him a lesson. The girls there arrest him and tie him up and take him to the student committee. The scene then cuts. We see Lawrence together with a maid. She advises that the guest had woken up, so he returns there to get information from the boy. He had been beaten up a lot, and Lawrence wanted more information about the protagonist and hopes that he can cooperate. He uses his instrument sense to try to get more information, and the guy gets scared to death and starts screaming, saying that he's going to tell everything he knows. He ends up taking a really strong punch in the stomach, and the butler said that now that he's got an empty stomach, he will be able to tell everything he knows. So Lawrence asks what relationship he has with Feng, and asks why they're enemies. The scene cuts again, and we go to the student council room. One of the girls appears, saying that she discovered something. The guy they had arrested was Feng's friend, and they knew each other long before coming to school. The president asks if there is any more information, and the protagonist's friend is begging to go to the bathroom. The girl with the sword appears there extremely nervous with the boy, asking how he dared to harass the president, but the blonde tells the boy to let her take care of him herself. The president was afraid that the girl with the sword would get too heavy-handed. As soon as she leaves, the president says that now he's all hers, and the boy already starts to die of fear, asking for forgiveness. He says that he deserves any kind of punishment, but begs her to let him live. She says that she can't let him get away with it, and with an evil face, he asks if he's seeing a ghost behind her. She picks up a giant needle and starts threatening the boy, and he begs, saying that he would do anything for her. So she wants him to spy on his friend Feng, who's the protagonist, and he would never do anything like that. He would never stab his friend in the back, and if she wanted, she could torture him with that needle. She says that's a shame because she was thinking of making him her personal assistant, and upon hearing that, he transforms into a little puppy, telling her that he's all hers and that he'll do anything she says. At Chuxia Ye's mansion, the green-haired guy who had tried to assassinate her ends up getting out of there and manages to escape. However, all of this seems to be part of Lawrence's plan, since he receives a communication of the escape of another employee there from the house. The protagonist's friend is being carried by him and another friend. They get angry when they find out that he was tortured by the president, and a moment later Lawrence already appears there, saying that he needs a favor from Feng. The protagonist refuses the request, and Lawrence asks why he doesn't listen first to what he has to say. So Feng tells his friend there that he can take the other one who's hurt, because he has an important matter to resolve. He talks then with the butler, and says that it has nothing to do with Miss Chuxia Ye, and the butler says that he owes her a lot, and recalls when he saw the girl there changing in the locker room. Feng says that it wasn't his intention, and that the butler there had also hurt his sister, so they were even. Lawrence apologizes and says that this has nothing to do with Miss Chuxia Ye, that's why he should help the girl. In response, the protagonist says that this is one more reason for him not to help in anything, and the butler ends up revealing that he has a video where it shows him spying on the young lady. He takes the flash drive there and breaks it. Then the butler asks if he'll help him now. Without options, Feng ends up accepting and asks if by chance he helps. They will delete the other copy of the video that they probably have, and the butler says that they will delete it if he helps the scene. Then it goes to Miss Chuxia Ye. She's surrounded by 4 guys. They say that she must go with them and say that it's to have some tea. She replies that it's better that this tea isn't bad, and ends up entering the car there together with them. The scene returns again, and we see the protagonist together with the butler, going after the young lady. Lawrence reveals that she was kidnapped and that they needed to rescue her because of that. They try to call her and send messages, but she can't answer, and he asks if by chance the protagonist was confused about what happened there at the amusement park. He said yes and asked why the young lady had cried. The butler reveals that she was missing her father. The girl's father was a very successful businessman, and was always very busy. Even so, he made an effort to have time to spend there with his daughter, because they were very close to each other. And unfortunately, he died on his way to buy ice cream for her. And after the death of her father, the young lady inherited the family's fortune there. But people tried in any way to deceive her to be able to keep the girl's money. She ended up taking all the responsibility for taking care of the family, and since then she has become a cold-hearted worker. She always kept her distance from others and was very lonely. She didn't trust the other directors of the company, and she always went to all the important meetings in person. And 6 months ago, a girl ended up entering her life and caused some changes, but that girl disappeared about a month ago. The protagonist didn't know any of this and asks, "What does this have to do with the kidnapping?" The butler then reveals that she has a GPS and a listening device, so they could hear what was happening. The GPS signal led to this building where they had just arrived, and it was the headquarters of Chuxia Ye's family's company. He decides to enter the building together with the protagonist to try to rescue his young lady, and Feng asks again, will he destroy all copies of the video? Lawrence confirms that yes as soon as they arrive. They notice several henchmen trying to block the entrance, but they defeat them there with extreme ease. Upon entering the building, they notice that it's completely empty, so they decide to go up the stairs, because the elevator there could contain some traps. There were several floors, so they needed to run as fast as possible. The young lady was being taken to the general manager. When she finally arrives, he is surprised, saying that he had been waiting for her for quite some time. This guy's name is Mr. Liu, and she asks, what's the reason for him bringing her there? In fact, he wanted to take the company for himself, and is making some speeches there trying to deceive the girl. The young lady is very intelligent and says, he has no authority there. He then throws some papers for her to sign. It was a voting rights contract. He wanted to have more power there within the company and become the new owner. This statement says that she was resigning from the position of president and wanted to recommend him in her place. Chuxia Ye said, even if he were the president, he wouldn't be able to control the company since he has no qualifications. The protagonist is listening to this whole conversation and realizes that the young lady is much stronger than he thought and wasn't giving in so easily to this Mr. Liu. He keeps insisting there and says that she'll be forced to sign these papers and hands them to her. Chuxia Ye gets angry and slaps the table asking, is he an idiot by any chance? She asks, Does he think he's going to be able to convince all the members of their board of directors? He said, that yes, and she's going to see how he's going to do it. The protagonist even realizes that the situation is not good at all and starts running even faster. The butler says that this kidnapping only seems like a part of the conspiracy, and the ladder by which they were climbing is damaged, and the butler suggests using another ladder there on the side. They change the path and end up having to enter through a door, and upon entering this new room, the chandelier there ends up falling, almost hitting the two. That shameless green-haired guy appears there saying that they fell into his trap. So Lawrence takes a note and hands it to the protagonist and tells him to move on, and as soon as he defeats this guy, he'll catch up with him. The protagonist takes the note and continues walking to reach Miss Chuxia. Then the green-haired guy said that he's not going to take it easy on the butler, and Lawrence makes the guy nervous, saying that he doesn't know him very well, but that judging by the last meeting, he's sure he'll defeat him easily. The green guy already gets angry and launches some shurikens at the butler, and he managed to dodge all of them with ease. However, his technique consists of trapping invisible threads, and he uses this technique to try to strangle the butler. However, Lawrence is very powerful and ends up cutting these threads with his blade. He said that he didn't want to kill him, but that he'll do it. He prepares to stab the guy with the blades, but the green-haired guy tries to escape in any way. However, that was part of a theater. He said that now that the protagonist is far enough away, he can stop beating on this guy. So he extends his hand and apologizes. Not even the green-haired guy understands what's happening. Is the butler a traitor? The protagonist continues to the 13th floor. However, when he arrives in the hallway, he notices a blue-haired guy on top of a chandelier. The guy jumps down there and he seems to be very strong. He said that his boss sent him there to give him some support, but he didn't like Mr. Liu. The protagonist realizes that he really hates this Mr. Liu. He says to stop with the small talk and start fighting. He unleashes an extremely fast punch, but Feng managed to dodge with elegance. He tries to land another blow. Feng does a backflip but ends up catching a graze on his cheek. The blue-haired guy is impressed and says that his opponent is strong for having managed to dodge. The protagonist reveals that he didn't expect anyone to have such a potent an attack like his, that only his master could do something like that. So the blue-haired guy says he's going to try again. This time the blow ends up hitting, launching Feng far away. The conceited guy there said that it's not over yet and there are many more blows to come, so Feng ends up throwing the chairs that were near him at this blue-haired boy. But he manages to dodge with great ease. He demonstrates being very strong, tearing off a pilaster, hitting Feng. He admits that he overdid it and that he probably killed the boy crushed there. But to his surprise, Feng was still alive. He wonders how this is possible, and if by chance he is a human being. Feng already says that he had a good master. Without giving his enemy time to get up, he attacks him again, delivering another blow to his chest. Then he falls to the ground, and the phone that contained the listening device of Miss Chuxia also ends up falling. The blue-haired guy says that it's better for them to hurry. He guarantees that he wouldn't kill the boy, because he needed to ask him some questions first. Feng, however, couldn't move. To his surprise, Mr. Liu's laughter ended up making the blue-haired boy feel bad. He starts to feel nauseous. He ends up vomiting right there. The laughter of that guy made his stomach churn, and the protagonist doesn't understand why that happens. He realizes that this is a perfect opportunity. So while the boy continues to vomit, Feng goes there and puts the earphones in his ear and leaves, leaving him feeling sick. His body is still quite sore. He realizes that he hadn't read the note that the butler had given him. After the death of Miss Chuxia's father, she isolated herself in the room for quite some time. For years, she couldn't overcome what happened, and everyone was very worried about her, until that girl finally appeared with her company. The young lady rediscovered her smile and her enthusiasm. The protagonist didn't imagine that she had gone through so many things, and while he reads the note, he comments that the butler is a bit too dramatic. The note still said that he had checked on this girl who had disappeared for the sake of the young lady. Lawrence discovers a strange thing. However, at that moment the girl simply disappears. That boy who was being held prisoner had revealed a very mysterious thing. While the protagonist reads, he gets quite shocked with what's written on that paper. The scene changes. We see the young lady negotiating with Mr. Liu. He says that when she signs the contract, she will have done something beneficial to him. The young lady says that this contract doesn't symbolize anything. The scene returns then to the protagonist, and the note said that Yao hadn't died. This girl is the one who is friends with his sister, and she kept accusing the protagonist of having killed her. People had seen her fall from the cliff, but there was no more information about her. The protagonist also wanted to know what was going on, and probably, folks, there is some connection between this girl, the protagonist, and his sister. So he decides to go there and ask Chuxia. She was still negotiating with this Mr. Liu, and she said that she doesn't trust the shareholders, so she had removed all of their stamps. Without the stamps, they couldn't do anything, and it would be impossible to take away her power there from the company. He keeps asking her to reveal where she kept the stamps. She said that she would never hand them over to him. He grabs her shoulder and starts threatening her. Her cell phone rings, and it's the green-haired boy saying that the butler had brought all the stamps to him. This ends up making the guy quite happy, and he starts giving that evil laugh of his. The young lady doesn't understand anything, so he explains that it was over and puts his cell phone there on a video call. She sees Lawrence in the background and realizes that she had been betrayed by him. He was handing over the stamps while asking for forgiveness. She asks if he had gone crazy by any chance. The butler reveals that he had promised the girl's father that he would protect her, but he didn't promise that he would double protect the company. She keeps calling him a traitor. The butler then reveals that he's doing this to protect her, since the girl there had forgotten what was most important. He was doing everything to help her. Then Mr. Liu orders the green-haired boy to bring these stamps to him. Now he only needs the girl's signature and ends up forcing her hand on top of the sheet. At that moment, someone is knocking on the door. He starts laughing, saying that he's the one who's going to manage the company. Someone continues to knock on the door. When he goes to answer, the protagonist gives a big kick, launching him far away. He asks for permission, saying that the delivery had arrived. That shameless guy says that he hadn't ordered anything. Feng jokes, saying that he ate everything on the way. He had defeated everyone down there. The protagonist says that he had no difficulties in passing through them. He orders other henchmen to try to kill the protagonist, and meanwhile, he flees through the emergency exit. Seconds later, Feng had already defeated all of them and was ready to pursue Mr. Liu. However, this guy activates a detonator and explodes one of the floors below there of the building. The protagonist then goes to the young lady and asks how she is realizing that the emergency alarm is ringing. He tells her that an explosion is causing a fire in the building, and that's why they need to get out of there as quickly as possible. However, the girl is in disbelief and she doesn't believe what's happening. He tries to take her outside, but the girl says that there is something that she needs to get. Feng insists on rescuing her, and the girl there ends up slapping his hand and then slapping his face. She says that he doesn't understand and starts to cry. Probably there was something important that she wanted to recover, so she runs off to try to rescue this item. Feng says that she is very stubborn and also very problematic. She runs through the corridors there on fire, and her body seems to be quite injured. She barely manages to stand up, and finally she ends up arriving in a room where there is something that she wants to get. She looks among the rubble and ends up finding the box, which is fortunately intact. She takes the key, then opens the safe, and hugs the little box that was inside. That was very important to her, and after recovering it, she decides that she has to find a way to get out of there. Chusia Ye realizes that there's no free exit, so she starts to get desperate. They were on the 10th floor, and it was too high for them to jump, and the exit was blocked, so she starts to cry in desperation, because there was no way to get out of there. Feng continues looking for the girl, saying that she is very stubborn. He hears the sound of crying, so he clenches his fist, and ends up breaking the door to enter inside there. She gets quite emotional because he hadn't given up on her and had returned to try to save her. Chusia Ye seems not to believe that he was risking his own life to save her. He asks where she learned to control this hot-tempered temper of hers, and ends up picking up the girl in his arms. He says that he's going to get them out of there. He then asks her to hold her breath so that she doesn't breathe the smoke, and with the girl in his arms he runs desperately in search of a place to be able to escape. All the exits were blocked, and the staircase was full of rubble and flames. While she tries to talk to him, he tells her to hold her breath, otherwise she would die suffocated. After much difficulty, he ends up finding the emergency exit door, and upon exiting the staircase, he realizes that he is still in a very high part of the building. The young lady had fainted, but now they were relatively safe. When he thinks that he was finally safe, the building there starts to explode, and they needed to get out of there, otherwise they would die. The explosions get more and more intense. He decides to jump down there into a swimming pool. When he does that, he realizes that the girl is completely unconscious. Due to the explosion, he also loses strength and can't swim to her. Water starts to enter his lungs, and little by little he loses consciousness. However, Feng notices that someone has appeared there to help them. Later, he woke up in the hospital. Who had saved the two was the butler, Lawrence. So the protagonist asks if it was really him who had saved the two. The butler says that he was in a helicopter, looking for an alternative to save his young lady. It was when he located the two jumping into the pool, and immediately he went there to save them. The protagonist takes a fruit from the basket that the butler had brought and asks what he did with Mr. Liu, because he knew that they wouldn't let him go unscathed. The butler advises that now the decision rests with his young lady. The protagonist asks how Lawrence is going to deal with the girl since she sees him as a traitor. The butler gets apprehensive, and he replies that she is still quite angry with him and he doesn't know what she's going to decide. The protagonist asks what he knows about Yao. He reveals that he knows very little, even less than the protagonist. He says that this girl got quite close to his young lady, but that he didn't talk much to her. So, one day he decided to research about this girl's past, but he ended up not finding many things. It's strange since she was a common girl. He doesn't understand why Lawrence hadn't been able to find information about her. So the butler reveals that the boy there that acquiring him to know what happened to her after that she had approached. The butler seemed a little suspicious, but he also wanted to discover the reason for it, since a very big mystery surrounded the His watch rings, and he flees through the window. And at that moment, the young lady appears there to visit him. She's very shy, folks, and asks if he had already woken up. The protagonist replies that yes, so she sits on a sofa and realizes that the upholstery there is warm, deducing that he had just received a visit. Feng disguises it, saying that it was his family who came to visit, and had even brought fruits, so he understands why the butler fled through the window. He didn't want to meet with the young lady. Chusiaye seems to suspect the protagonist there, and Feng asks if she came there strictly to visit him. In a very shy way, she says that yes, she came there to visit him since he had saved her. At that moment, the girls from the school there end up knocking on the door, breaking all the atmosphere there. Among the three, the girls seem surprised, with the mysterious Chusiaye coming to visit Feng there. She asks who these girls are. They respond in a somewhat nervous way that they are his classmates. Before leaving, Chusiaye says that they need to talk about Yao, and then she leaves. The girls get curious, asking if by chance they are dating. Feng gets defensive. He already uses his acting mode there because he was pretending to them that he had lost his memory, and starts acting silly. The representative had brought a basket of fruits for him. However, he had already received one from the butler. He ends up lying, saying that this basket was brought by Chuxiaye. The girls already start to tease, imagining that they are very intimate, that in fact they are dating. Yes, they insist for him to tell the truth and admit that they are dating. However, Feng says that they are not close, and doesn't even know the reason for her coming there. But the three there don't believe what he's saying and are making up theories there about the dating. The representative then decides to leave and let the protagonist rest. He thanks her for the visit. Soon after, he receives a message from Chuxiaye inviting him to a date at Music Bucks at 3 p.m. Feng then appears at the agreed location, which was that coffee shop called Music Bucks. He keeps saying that the place is quite chic and is worthy of being visited by Chuxiaye. Then when he receives the menu and sees the price of the items, he gets quite startled. The girl finally appears. She's using an outfit that he doesn't usually see her use. Our protagonist already gets quite emotional and his cheeks even get flushed. She asks why he's making that face. In a quite nervous way, he says that he's a perfect gentleman. She says that as he's a gentleman, he should choose the order and then pay. Feng already realizes that he messed up on that one. However, as our hero likes to provoke Chusiaye, he ends up ordering 2 cups of coffee and 2 cakes with arrows of love. And this was an order that couples used to order in this place. That's why Chusiaye already gets quite nervous and with flushed cheeks. She even ends up thinking that he's the last romantic on Earth. She decides to cut off this subject right away and ask how much he knows about Yahello. The only thing that he knew is that 6 months ago she met this girl and they became quite friends. Chusiaye doesn't want to talk much about the girl since mysteriously she disappeared. Not even her butler Lawrence knew what had happened to this mysterious girl. Feng says that she doesn't need to talk about it anymore since it's a subject that makes her uncomfortable. Chusia said that her room at school was near Yao's dormitory, which is why they had met. Feng asks why the heck she has a room just for her. Chusiaye says that she doesn't like to study together with other students. That's why she bought part of the school's shares just to have a private room for her. At that moment, our protagonist realizes that rich people literally manage to do whatever they want. However, Chuxiaye also reveals that Yao also had a private room for her. This increases even more the mysteries behind this girl. That evil one with the red hair. She's spying on our hero and ends up seeing him taking an afternoon coffee together with Chuxiaye. So, the girl already decides to grab her cell phone. Takes some photos to have some secret weapon to use against Feng. Chusiaye says that she's going to have to use some tactics to be able to acquire information about Yao from that Lu, because she imagines that he must know something about her. Feng gets quite scared upon realizing that the girl is capable of doing this type of thing. She makes a quite scary face that ends up leaving our hero a little scared. He realizes that that guy who tried to stage a coup at Chusiaye's company could very well be dead. He suggests that after finishing the interrogation, it would be better to hand him over to the police. However, Chusiaye says that when she finishes the interrogation, she'll call him and tell him the news. The evil one with the red hair already gets all in love, thinking that our hero is dating Chusiaye. She decides to take some photos and even makes some notes. She writes on a notepad that she was a little disappointed, because as soon as they finished drinking coffee, they left separately, and this indicated that nothing happened in a hotel. Soon after, this girl goes to a library and ends up finding Tong Fei reading some books. On the cover of the book, it said that it was an efficient treatment for amnesia. We are already imagining that she is a little interested in Feng, since he supposedly has amnesia, and she is all interested in wanting to help him. When the red-haired girl sees the cover of the book, she already gets startled and starts to think that her friend is really in love. She goes there to try to irritate Tong Fei. However, the girl ends up dodging. She tells her friend to be quiet when she's in a bookstore. She's questioned because she's reading this type of book. She says that regardless of Feng being a man, she's the class representative. That's why she should help all of her friends. The red-haired girl hadn't fallen for this amnesia story, but even so, Tong Fei would help. She says that she believes in Feng. The red-haired girl says that, in fact, Tong Fei is interested. In Feng, that's why she's reading this type of book, to have something in common to be able to talk with him. However, our girl with the blue hair says that it's nothing like that. She's simply demonstrating attention for being the class representative. Her friend ends up poking her, telling her to be careful and act faster than the other girls, because she would end up being passed to the back, the Tong Fei of the soul of fool, and pretends not to know what is happening. In fact, there were already quite a lot of girls there interested in our hero, and if she ended up goofing off, she wasn't going to manage to conquer the heart of our kid. Upon arriving at the dormitory of the female school Chongyan, Feng ends up finding the butler Lawrence. They were fighting because the butler had betrayed Chuxie, and they end up throwing punches. Lawrence says that he didn't come there to fight, he just wants to talk with our hero. She had even prepared food for him. Feng says that he won't eat the food of a traitor, and minutes later he is sitting at the table eating Lawrence's food. He then asks what the heck Lawrence came to do at school. Without making much suspense, Lawrence said that he has an ultra-special mission for our hero. He wanted to leave his young lady Ye in Feng's hands. The protagonist doesn't quite fully understand what he means by that. The butler says that it's exactly what he heard. After the incident of the building where Lu tried to take Chuxia Ye's organization, he couldn't work for the girl anymore, since she wouldn't trust him anymore. Therefore, the person who would be able to replace him was our hero. Only he was reliable enough and also strong to protect the girl. Lawrence said that he will use this time to investigate some matters. When asked what matters those are, the butler reveals that it's about her master, Chuxia Ye's father. There's a very big mystery being drawn about who this Yao is, and what really happened to Chuxia Ye's father. As many dangerous people were trying to take the girl's father's company, she needed a very skilled and confident security guard. That's why Lawrence was going to recommend him as her replacement. Feng says that he doesn't have a good feeling about this. Besides, it would make it easier for him to get information about Yao, since her disappearance was linked to Chuxia Ye's company. The butler keeps insisting quite a bit. Our hero already realizes that there's no way for him to refuse. He ends up confirming that he will accept this proposal. However, deep down he imagines that Chuxia Ye won't accept him as security, because he imagines that the girl detests him. When they say goodbye, Feng thanks Lawrence for having sent a basket of fruits while he was hospitalized. However, it wasn't the butler who had delivered those baskets. Our hero already gets all confused. In a dormitory near there, his sister sneezes. We see that, in fact, it was she who took those baskets. Deep down, she still liked and cared about her brother. During the night, our hero couldn't sleep. So he goes to the school's gym to be able to train. He hears someone passing in the hallway. When he opens the door to see who it was Tong Fei. Tong Fei was so in love that she was following our hero. She even went there to deliver some gift to him. She said that she had prepared a dinner. Since he had amnesia, she was doing this so that he could recover as quickly as possible. The girl only kept making excuses because she didn't want to admit that she was worried and that she cared about him. That was a beef stew with potatoes. The appearance seemed to be very good. However, when our hero puts it in his mouth, he already starts to feel sick. His vision gets blurred. Looks like she wasn't a good cook. He ends up fainting. He dreams that he is in heaven. The place is very beautiful and illuminated. That was a practically perfect dream. He sees Chuxia Ye together with Tong Fei. They hug him and call him to go to paradise, which is far away in the sky. Along the way, he observes several waifus from the school. This was a dream that you would like to be a reality in your lives. Each of them seems even more in love with our hero. They all keep inviting him to do something that I can't talk about here. But when he observes his sister in the background also inviting him, he already gets a little scared. However, she only wanted to make peace with him. Upon seeing Lan's hand stretched out for him to make peace, he also stretches out his hand to touch her hand. At that moment, Feng ends up waking up with his hands in a place where they shouldn't be. Tong Fei, I know she was quite brave and aggressive, is quite calm. Even though the situation is considered critical, he asks where he is. Tong Fei says that it's better for him to take his hand off there first. She's quite calm, and even so, he takes a huge scare. As he had amnesia, she said that she's calmer with him and that he doesn't need to worry. However, we see that her cheek is all flushed and she was liking that. Even Feng gets a little scared because her reaction was quite normal and I accepted it. He asks, "Who is Lan Lan that he just shouted?" It's logical that she knew that Xiaolan was Feng's sister. However, she was asking that to see if he had recovered his memory. At that moment, Feng enters acting mode level 10. He starts to pretend that he was calling the name that he remembers well in the depths of his mind. Poor Feifera is happy to think that Feng's recovering his memory. He starts to act even more, pretending that he doesn't know who this name is about. The girl gets worried, telling him not to make a lot of effort, because that way he was going to get a headache. The shameless one realizes that his acting was successful. He thanks the representative, saying that the food was very good, being that it was a lie, so much so that it gave him poisoning. For having praised the girl's food, she decides to put a little more in his mouth. He ends up shouting, saying that he doesn't need it. For having lied, he ended up having to eat all the food that she had brought. He ends up fainting from food poisoning for being part of the athletics club. She's quite strong and ends up picking him up in her arms to take him to the infirmary. However, in the middle of the way, she decides to leave him in his dormitory, then covers him and leaves. The next morning, he's feeling sick and is even staggering. He arrives in the classroom a little late, and the teacher tells everyone to be quiet. Today they will be welcoming a new classmate. Her name was Moria, and she was a student from Great Britain. The blonde already has a face that you should be suspicious of. She keeps asking the students of Chang'an College to treat her very well, and she'll do everything to get along with all the students. The girls keep saying that she's pretty, that her hair is charming, and that her skin is silky. But Feng already knows that this girl has something strange about her. The teacher orders Moria to sit at the desk near Feng. She goes over there. The girl throws her backpack on the table. Our hero welcomes her, saying that now they are neighbors. She repeats the phrase that she just said, asking them to take good care of her. Both had recently transferred. That's why they already imagine that they will get along well. Our hero's friend with kitten ears gets a little jealous of Feng. She's getting along well with the new student, since everyone there wanted to make friends with her. Then a shameless friend of our hero runs off to flirt with this guy. He's quite shameless, but Moria refuses him right away, saying that the boy seems to be a little frivolous. This ends up destroying him, since the boy was quite confident for thinking himself charming. She had already taught him a lesson, telling him not to flirt at school. She seems to be behind him, saying that he hadn't learned since the last lesson, and that they will need to punish him again. At that moment, the disciplinary committee goes to the room for having heard some student flirting. The poor guy already starts to die of fear, saying that he didn't do anything and that he's innocent. But that girl with the sword snaps her finger. She makes all her helpers tie him up and take him to the room to be able to punish him again. Tongfei introduces herself to Amore, saying that she is the class representative. Soon after, she tells Feng that she will stop by his dormitory to take him lunch. The red-haired girl hears this and wants to ruin her friend's plans. She says that she will also stop by Feng's dormitory to take a little surprise to him. The other students who are around already imagine that this is going to be a party, so they start thinking about how they will invite themselves. The evil one with the pink hair asks if there is any problem with her also going along. Nanong, along with the girl with kitten ears, also invite themselves. Ranel gets embarrassed. Very quietly, she whispers asking, "Prophet? Can she also attend the party?" Moria, who had just arrived at the school, also invites herself. Our hero realizes that he is going to cause chaos inside his dormitory. In a company in the center of the city, they're planning something. That blue-haired guy who is working for Director Liu advises the general director that they failed inside the AE Mansion building and didn't manage to steal the company. He still says that Master Liu was arrested and is in captivity at his enemy's house. The general director orders him to go there to be able to rescue him. He said that he will not disappoint his boss and that he will accomplish this mission, no matter what happens for the mission to succeed. She says that she has arranged a new member to help him in this mission, which is quite difficult. We see this mysterious boss passing the plan to him with certain details. Back at Chang'an College, we see that Feng's dormitory is really full of students. They are drinking a Chinese Coca-Cola of 2.5 Ella and are quite animated as if there was something there in the drink. Tongfei offers Wei Wei some soda. She said that she won't drink since it's bad for her health. Feng was getting along well with that new girl. She asks if around there they don't do topless, but the young woman doesn't even know what that is. When she asks what that word means, she explains it to him. The shameless one already gets all embarrassed. Tongfei realizes that our hero is getting along well with the girl. She goes there to separate the two. Deep down, Ranel gets a little jealous. Tongfei says that she shouldn't be saying this kind of thing, and that it's against the rules to get so close to boys like that. Finally, the evil redhead says that she's hungry, and asks her friend to go to the restaurant to get some food. When Tongfei leaves, the evil one with the red hair goes to our hero with that photo to be able to blackmail him. He gets startled upon seeing that she had taken that picture of him. The evil one with the red hair? She says that she doesn't want to blackmail him at all. She just wants to know what was happening. Our hero gives all kinds of excuses possible, but the girl doesn't accept it. She demands that he tell the truth. The poor guy already realizes that this isn't going to come cheap and he'll have to, in her acting mode, level hard to be able to trick this girl. She insists that she wants to know how he met her. The protagonist asks what she's going to do with him if he doesn't tell. The redhead already starts asking how it was that he confessed to her. Up to what point did they go? How did they meet, and if they even introduced each other to their families? Feng insists, saying that he has nothing with Chuseaye and that he wouldn't dare to have intimacy with her. The evil redhead says that among all the students who have already passed through the school, none had the courage to even talk with her. That's why she was very curious to know what Feng had done to leave Chuseaye so calm as she was. She was quite intelligent. That's why Feng had to invent the best excuse of all. He says that the butler invited him to be able to take care of Chuseaye's kitten. When he went there, he rehearsed the service very well. Of course, he wasn't going to tell the whole truth. That's why he invents a very lame excuse. Even so, the redhead seems to believe it and writes everything down in a notebook. Feng gets nervous, asking why she's writing on that paper. She says that she likes to write in her materials, subjects like these. He asks if this is for some schoolwork. She says that she's not going to answer. He gets quite curious. She said that she will demand that he tell more stories and starts to leave. She was very hungry, so she runs off, and Feng gets worried, wondering if she'll tell other girls or not. All that was left for him was to trust her. Soon after that, he goes there to be able to have dinner, and the food seemed to be very tasty. The next day, all the students who participated in that party were feeling sick. Mariah was the only one who wasn't feeling like this, and upon getting up, she realizes that our hero was calling out his sister's name. That was probably because of the effect of the food. He stands there wondering what kind of strange dreams it is that he has been having in recent days. Again, he had dreamed that his sister looked like an angel and was inviting him to make peace. He takes the ugly and ugly one to the infirmary. Soon after, he goes to Moria to be able to talk. She said that she also started to feel bad, and that it was probably a strong food poisoning, and the two were looking quite exhausted. She was going to the teacher's room to resolve some important matters. Our hero says that he is going to the classroom, because he already feels better and needs to study in the hallway. He mentions that it would be a good idea to take one of those pills that he won from the butler Lawrence, since it would make him recover a little more of his strength. However, to his surprise, he ends up meeting with the headmistress. We know that this headmistress is a little strange, and likes, let's say, a little too much of our hero. She tells Feng that everyone already knows about the girl who disappeared there at school, and that this is lowering the popularity of the college. She had just come out of a meeting with the board of directors. They decided that they should improve the security system in any way. And if another incident like this happened, they would close the school. This seemed to be a quite drastic attitude. Feng already realizes that it is going to fall to him, so he tries to flee quickly. However, the headmistress pulls him by the collar and says that she has a quite important mission, and only he can resolve it. He says that he is not accustomed to that and is leaving on tiptoe. However, the headmistress says that if he doesn't resolve this issue, the school will close and he would lose his scholarship. Just to remind you, he's in the school to earn the scholarship money and thus pay off his parents' debt. That's why it was very important that the school continue open and he doesn't lose this money. So he wants in any way to understand what he needs to do. The headmistress says that Feng understood very well. No school, no scholarships. He already starts to burn with nervousness and says that he will accomplish any mission that she gives him. This was the perfect plan that the headmistress had armed. All of this to motivate our hero. For now, he only needed to protect the school and not let anything bad happen to the girls. This mission even seemed a little simple, however. As the headmistress said that it was an important mission, he already gets anxious, thinking that something bad may be about to happen. Moria, that new girl who came from Great Britain, goes to the boardroom to talk to the chief advisor. He asks if she is the student that the helper Ling had sent. She replies that it was her herself, and that please take care of me. She always said that. At that moment, we already see that this girl is plotting something and she seems quite suspicious. The advisor says that he doesn't know what Ling was thinking by sending a student to talk there with him. Even so, he receives her well and orders the girl to sit down so that they can negotiate. The girl asks if he doesn't trust her. If by chance he wants, she can do something to prove her ability. The advisor says that there is no need for that, and asks the girl why the last plan had failed. She explains that previously Link, that guy who tried to take Chuxiaye's companies, had sent Jin Fu, who's that blue-haired boy. However, they failed and didn't manage to take the company for them. The main mission wasn't even to take the companies of Chuxiaye's father, but rather the shares of the female school Chongnan. And to make it worse, they didn't imagine that Link would be captured and taken the hostage by the girl. The advisor asked Moria if this information was leaked. She says that she didn't tell anything to anyone, and few people know about their true plan. A little nervous for having failed, the advisor asks if she has any suggestions. Apparently she had some brilliant plan in mind. She said that she will tell him in detail. She was preparing for a security accident. The scene cuts without us knowing what is this true plan that she is devising after lunch. The classroom seemed exhausting, since many of the students were feeling sick because of the food that they had eaten the night before. Nanong is feeling sick and tries to use her power of divination there to know when they will get better. Tongfei only worries about Feng. He says there to the class representative that he feels a little better compared to earlier. Weiwei gets jealous and says that Fei Fei is giving a lot of attention to the protagonists. All of them there get bothered with their friend's attention to Feng. They plan to end the girls' good moments. When they set off to interrupt, Chu Xiaye opens the doors, calling the attention of all the students. She says out loud to Feng to get ready and prepare for the change. Everyone there gets curious to know what that phrase of hers was about. The girl was quite popular. Even the students in the hallways get curious to know this gossip. Feng starts to sweat cold. She tells him that he will move to her house. This leaves all the students speechless. They would never imagine that they would hear this from the mouth of that girl. As she was quite rich and powerful, everyone was afraid of her. But the girl was there, clinging to Feng's arms. She mentions that her maid had already arranged everything. He would stay in Lawrence's place, since now she couldn't trust him anymore. Our hero would be her personal security guard. The poor guy imagined that she wouldn't accept this recommendation. He keeps asking even if she wanted a security guard, it wouldn't make sense for him to move to her house. She doesn't understand what he's talking about. Since the main part of the security will be at her mansion, then it would make total sense for them to live together. Because she keeps insisting quite a bit, he ends up giving in. He says that he will live there for some time. Deep down, he was planning some way to get rid of Chuxiaye. All the girls at the school go outside to be able to observe that scene. No one believed that Chuxiaye, the richest and most popular girl at the school, was leaving arm in arm with Feng. Some even comment about their history, because they knew that the two had argued. Some gossips keep saying that that is a declared dating. It starts to spread rumors about the two. Feng's sister, Alan, observes her brother leaving with that girl. She sent him a message asking what he's up to. He even sees the notification on his cell phone, but he can't touch it near Chuxiaye. If she discovered this message, she would find it bad. Before he could complain, saying that he couldn't leave because Ria's belongings were still in the dormitory. Chuxiaye replies that her employees have already taken care of everything, and they will take all the boys' belongings to the mansion. The Aiye mansion was quite enormous. Only the entrance courtyard was extremely long. Feng gets all emotional, saying that the mansion is truly beautiful. At the entrance door, the three maids receive the couple. Better, Chuxiaye and Feng. We already see a big painting of Da Vinci there, the Mona Lisa. I don't know if this is the original painting, but we see that she is very rich. She has several famous works of art in her hallways. Upon seeing all the luxury items, he feels a little bad, because he thinks that he is not strong enough to work for the girl. As soon as Chuxiaye leaves, he asks the maid why him being her personal security guard if there wasn't any other more qualified person. The green-haired employee said that Lawrence was quite trustworthy. However, because he had betrayed her in the building accident, it was very difficult for her to find another person up to the task to be able to replace him. As Feng showed himself to be a true friend and someone in whom she could trust, he would yes be the ideal person. But it doesn't get it into his head why he is so trustworthy to her. He remembers that at that critical moment, where she was on the verge of death, he risked his own life to save the girl. That was something that no person had done before. Our hero, even not getting along well with her, risked his own life. He even said that it was a misunderstanding and what he did wasn't a big deal. He even asked the maid if she could advise the young lady that he wasn't the right person. However, at that moment, the maid says that they disagree with him, and in fact, who should be advised was Feng himself. When she was in danger and everyone turned against her, only our hero risked himself and went there to protect her. Besides, he didn't want to control her life, saying what she should do, as Lawrence always did. That's why he should trust more in himself, demonstrate value in this trust that she was giving him. Feng gets thoughtful for an instant. When he enters his room and sees that it's gigantic, he already starts to get amazed. Even his belongings that were in the dormitory were all there, organized in the way that he had left them. The maid even comments that they made a point of putting the books in the correct order. Some yellow magazines under his bed were also placed in the correct category. Feng already gets nervous, asking if by chance they leafed through those magazines. The group there of changes was perfect. They guaranteed first-class accommodation. If he needed anything, he could call them. Our hero gets worried and only thinks about the magazines. What could be inside, huh, folks? To finish, the maid even said, that door is very important. When he asks what that blessed door is for, she says that it leads to Chuxiaye's room. Yes, folks, our hero's room was interconnected with the girl's room. Can you already think of the possible scenes that might occur? He gets nervous, asking why that is. The maid says that it's so that he can defend her in possible night attacks. It is only locked from the inside. That's why he couldn't invade her room. Only she could enter through that door and hide in his room if necessary. He starts to shout, saying that this is quite evasive. The maid disguises it, pretending that she is cleaning some dust there in the closet. Before leaving, she reminds him that the doors can only be opened from the side of Chuxia-ye's room. That's why there's no use in him trying to enter inside there. He already gets angry, saying that he won't enter there. Worried about being attacked by her during the night, he places several items in the middle of the door so that she can't open it. The purpose of this mission was for him to defend her. However, he was afraid of being attacked by Chuxia-ye. He still had in his head that she detested him. Later, he meets with a young lady to be able to have afternoon coffee. She reveals that Mr. Liu had gained help from a strange organization to be able to take the shares of the school. In fact, the real interest of this organization wasn't so much Chuxia-ye's companies, but rather the shares that she had bought from Chang'an College. She gets nervous because of this, saying that she's going through all this stress for something irrelevant. She had discovered this information because Liu was locked in her basement. Feng already gets nervous upon knowing this, since he doesn't approve of this kind of thing. During the day of the incident, we see what had happened. Mr. Liu was fleeing in a helicopter. However, one of Chuxia-ye's maids had managed to invade the security system and hack that helicopter, making it fall and thus capturing the subject. They had caught both Mr. Liu and that green-haired guy. The protagonist realizes that the Ye family was also sinister. That's why he should be careful and be loyal to his young lady. However, something that had left her quite upset is that she had distrusted her directors, but none of them had betrayed her. She thought that they had informed about the seals and signed the documents, but none of this had happened. She imagined that Liu had spent a lot of time looking for the weakness of his directors, and thus make them sign willingly or unwillingly. In fact, Liu only knew about these seals at the time that she mentioned it in the conversation with him. And her directors hadn't told anything about this to Hollywood during all this time. She imagined that if she had acted with a certain rigidity, no one would be able to betray her. In the end, she was rigid, and even so, there was a traitor. She suspected people who were loyal to her. Feng knew what she should do. He says this to her. She was afraid of going to the headquarters of her company and talking to their directors. She felt fear and also felt embarrassed, because she knew that she had done something wrong and suspected them, even though the poor guys hadn't given her reasons for that. Feng then holds the girl's hand. He starts to drag her. She asks where he is taking her. He says that she already knows what she must do. He asks the young lady to change and gather the directors in the meeting room. The maids then help Miss Ye to be able to change. They go to the building of the temporary headquarters since the old building had caught fire. He takes the girl to the door of the meeting room and pushes her inside. When she arrives there, she starts to tremble with nervousness. She would like to apologize, however she was very anxious and wouldn't be able to do that alone. She really needed a little push like Feng did. He stays outside feeling proud of the girl. He goes to a hallway to sit on a sofa and drink a soda. When she returns, he observes the girl with flushed cheeks. She didn't want someone who kept bossing her around as Lawrence did. However, Feng was different. He knew exactly how to give the right little push for her to do good things. She asked why he forced her to do that. He said that in reality, from the beginning, she wanted to apologize to them, but she was afraid of meeting with the directors for creating false expectations in her heart. In an embarrassed way, she said that even without him, she would come and apologize. Our hero said that if it weren't for him, she wouldn't have come here and would be there in her room sulking if she wasn't honest. But from now on, she would make several mistakes. That's why she should change her frankness from now on. He asks her to thank him. At that moment, Feng realizes that he went too far, and had provoked Miss Aya quite a bit. In a very frightening way, she says that she won't fail to show her sincere gratitude to him. The poor guy already feels regret for having said those words. He starts telling her not to thank him, imagining that she's going to do something bad to him. At that moment, the young lady snaps her fingers. The maidens grab Feng by the arm. They start to drag him back to the mansion. He begs for his life, but it was already too late. Back at the girl's house, we see that she only took him to have tea. The boy's plan was to keep stringing her along as possible until the day came that he could leave this mansion. Miss Aya keeps saying words with double meaning as if she were going to make him pay for something. In the middle of the conversation between the two, she says that there is something in him that she admires quite a bit. When a girl is going through trouble, he doesn't think about anything. He puts himself at risk to be able to save them. This was a quality that caught the girl's attention. Feng gets a little embarrassed upon hearing this. The maids outside already start to imagine that Feng is manipulating the young lady. That's why they want to poison our hero's food. They would use that same substance that they put in the glass of that blonde guy who liked Feng's sister. When he was drugged, he attacked the first woman he saw, and I don't know if you remember, he was also kidnapped. and is in the basement of the mansion. They say that they will put it in Feng's soup so that he attacks Miss Aya and they can interrupt this outburst of his. All this because they are afraid or jealous. It's not possible to understand right away. There wouldn't be time to prepare a soup. So they put the poison inside a glass of water. She heads to the room to deliver this poison glass. However, Feng ends up leaving through the door and bumps into the glass. All the liquid is about to fall. Our hero is quite skilled and holds the glass with his hands. He ends up putting the water back into the container. He was quite skilled. He gives an embarrassed smile, saying that he was distracted. The maid already gets nervous because now the liquid had mixed and both glasses were poisoned. The green-haired maid had already delivered the food and there was no more disguising it. That's why she ended up leaving the glass of water on the table. She reveals to the other maid that there was a misunderstanding. Now both glasses are poisoned and their plan would go down the drain. Both Feng and Chuxia Ye would drink from that water and he would get, let's say, daring. Sometime later it was already getting late, and the effect of the poison still hadn't activated. He goes to the large bathing hall, and it was quite close to the female area where Chuxia Ye was bathing. The girl gets emotional just thinking that he is on the other side of the wall. Her cheeks get all flushed. He leaves the bath and feels that he is sweating a lot, and this seems a little strange. He enters his room and lies down to sleep, but soon after the door opens. We see that someone is approaching our hero's bed. I told you that this door that when interconnected to the room of the two would still cause problems. She ends up lying down on top of this protagonist. He wakes up a little startled, saying that he is feeling something soft. When he opens his eyes, he was touching a quite restricted area. She asks why he's squeezing so hard. When he realizes where his hand is touching, he already gets extremely appalled. He didn't understand if that was a dream or if it was reality, but it was too good to be true. He apologizes for having touched there with his hand. She realizes that the Feng had woken up. Chuxia gets a quite daring look. He keeps asking why she is in his room. She gives a little excuse, saying that she just came to ask something. He told her to ask right away. She wanted to know why he hadn't returned the calls after that meeting at the cafeteria. She had called him several times, however. Our hero, as he was a fool, didn't return any of the calls. She says that he has reasons to hate her and asks why, even so, he keeps helping her. He doesn't know very well what to say, because this scene is quite embarrassing. He says that he only does this because he's a good person. She doesn't believe this little excuse and sits on top of him, questioning the real reason for him to keep helping her. Many people were involved with the girl because of money, power, or fame. She wanted to know if he was also near her because of any of these items. The gossipy maids already stay there on the other side of the door, trying to hear the conversation. The poor girl didn't trust people very much, since from a very young age, everyone who approached her was for pure interest. She never had true friends. That's why she had a somewhat protective and aggressive personality. She protected herself from everyone. She didn't trust anyone. Even if she trusted Feng, deep down she still thought that he did certain things out of interest. She questions him in a somewhat aggressive way. He doesn't know what to answer. So he holds her in his arms. He throws her on the bed. He says that she is an irrational, reckless, and spoiled bossy. If her father saw her like this, he would call her a spoiled little princess. The girl already gets all in love and with flushed cheeks. He asks if by chance she doesn't think that she would be prettier if she stopped being a spoiled girl. Can I say that? He already gets a little regretful and tries to give a pass of cloth, saying for her not to misunderstand that he just can't stand to see her like that and wanted to help her a little. However, Chuxia Ye starts to give a very soft laugh. He asks why she is laughing. She tells him to take on the new responsibility that he has earned. Let her spoil him. He also gets with flushed cheeks and a little surprised. She asks what will be the answer. She starts squeezing her leg on his leg. He says that he will let her spoil him. However, at that moment, the effect of the poison gets even stronger. She starts to have a strange sensation. The daring mode was finally activated, and she pulls Feng's neck very close to her face. That was a perfect atmosphere for something to finally happen. However, our hero also has the poison there in his body activated. He starts to get quite excited. The maids don't stop spying for a single minute. They explain that the poison's outburst sometimes takes a while to activate, but when it activates, it does so all at once. The girl hugs our hero and says that she is quite hot. She touches his chest and says that she wants something. We already think that at that moment, something that we have been waiting for a long time will happen. The faces of the two get closer slowly. When they're almost kissing, the scene cuts. We see that Chuxia Ye's mansion is being attacked. That blonde girl from school is aiming with a gun. She gives a shot, causing a big explosion. The maids realize at that moment that the house is being attacked by that secret organization. The explosion is intense and makes both Fenge and Chuxia Ye faint. That's why the maids realize that the two of them will have to take care of this alone. The green-haired one gathered that this explosion was only to call attention. The purpose is to rescue the prisoners in the basement. Amor is spying from the top of a tree, while the other henchman, who is that blue-haired boy, infiltrates inside the house and goes down the stairs to the basement. In order to find Master Lu, the blonde tries to shoot the green-haired maid. Green, however, she is very fast. The boy finally finds someone tied up with a bag on his head. This mission had ended in a very quick way. He thinks that it was very easy. He puts the prisoner on his shoulder and prepares to leave there as quickly as possible. However, some kunais are launched in his direction. He swerves, throwing the prisoner on the ground. He imagined that the maids were quite weak, however that wasn't true. She was quite powerful, and was there to protect her young lady. The boy says that he can't waste time with her. The girl already shakes the skirt, making several weapons fall. She imposed kunais and a katana. The boy tears off his little knife and starts to go on top of her. They exchange some blows. We see that the fight is quite balanced. However, the green-haired maid wasn't demonstrating even 10% of her power. She ends up hitting a punch in his stomach, launching him far away. She wouldn't let him get away with it and would make him regret having entered there. For sure, he didn't imagine that the situation would reach this level. From up there, Amor ends up launching a bomb. The explosion ends up causing a destruction that is even big, and smoke covers the entire courtyard. The smoke was perfect for the boy to be able to flee. He starts running as fast as he can. He knows that if he continued there and tried to win in the fight, he would lose, since the employees of the IEA family learned the style of the Hidden Dragon. This was a secret technique of quite powerful fighting. The only thing that they wanted was to bring back Master Yu. The mission would be a success. That's why it was enough to flee the location. They return inside and say that the young lady is safe. Their plan really was to call attention with the explosion and free the prisoner who is in the basement. They comment that the guest had been taken away by this secret organization. Back to the building of this organization, we see that the two finally managed to leave unscathed, with that guest tied up there on the boy's shoulders. And they say that it was much easier than they imagined. The security there at the mansion isn't really a big deal. He didn't expect the fight there at the mansion to be difficult. The mission having ended in a very easy way, he was surprised by the employees being powerful. The boy asks Amori if she's doing well at Chongyang College. She asks if by chance he doesn't have a sister who studies there. Probably he didn't get along very well with his sister, so he prefers not to comment about the subject. They put Link on a chair. Upon talking with their comrade, they realize that he doesn't respond, and upon taking the bag off his face, they realize that they rescued the wrong person. They had rescued that guy who liked Feng's sister. The blue-haired boy is at a loss to understand, who the heck is this guy? Upon realizing that it wasn't Master Lu, they already get worried. The mission seemed to have been too easy, and what before was a great success became a defeat. Another member of the secret group with pink hair appears with her face hooded. We are curious to know who this girl is, since there are other students in the school who also have hair of this color, and she is probably a spy. She says that she will report to Ling that the mission was a failure. Amor gets upset for having failed. She didn't like this hooded girl. She says that she emits an unpleasant air. It's as if every feeling that came from her was something sinister and obscure. Amor didn't want to think too much about this girl because that made her feel bad. She says to change the subject. She told the blue-haired guy for them to devise another plan to free Lu. She arranges to go into the school tomorrow and poison the food and weaken Feng. The next morning, our hero is going to school together with Chuxia Ye. She is a barnacle with him. This ends up leaving our hero quite worried. Then we see what happened this morning so that they could come on foot to school. They had woken up with a bit of a headache. They were quite embarrassed because of what happened at the night before. The maids had said that the mansion was attacked. Chuxia Ye got quite nervous at the size of audacity that this organization had of attacking her own mansion. They keep making up a theory of why that Cheng had been rescued by this organization. They thought that he was just a shameless, drugged guy. They didn't imagine that the purpose of this organization was to release Lu and not Cheng. That's why they get quite confused. Chuxia says that she is hungry and orders her to make a quite elaborate breakfast for her. However, all the cutlery and cups had broken because of the explosion. Her employee then suggests that they go on foot to the school. That way they could talk on the way and get to know each other better. Chuxia Ye thinks that this is a great idea. Our hero gets even more worried. I don't know why, but he's scared to death of her. The girl is becoming quite friendly, and even so he continues to be silly like this. During the way they pass in some stores. She tries on a bag. She asks him if the bag matches her eyes. He said that she looked very beautiful. Then the girl takes a hat to try on. He was worried because of the night before. He didn't know if that was a part of some test. He thought that if he put his foot in the ball, he could also end up locked there in the basement. She says that something quite strange was happening with them the night before, but she couldn't remember it right. She asks if in the future another opportunity like that arises, if he'll want to be with her. Feng doesn't understand if he heard this right. It sounded as if it were a request for him to be with her. As Feng hadn't answered, she said that she didn't need him to give this answer now, and he could think more carefully. The saleswoman at the store realizes that that is Chuxia Ye. She realizes that the commission will be big. The girl wanted to buy the bag, but she remembers that her mansion had been attacked. That's why she couldn't ask the store to deliver it there, and ends up deciding to buy the entire store. She pulls out her credit card, and that was a legendary card. The saleswoman asks if by chance it's the 10-color premium black card from the Aye group. They say that it is unique and the card has an unlimited limit. She could buy exactly everything that exists in the world. Feng already starts saying that this is an exaggeration. Before leaving, the saleswoman even thanks for having had this opportunity in her life of having seen the very Chuxia Ye together with her legendary card. We return to the present. When they had just arrived at the school, she had never eaten in the dining hall. She doesn't know exactly how the normal students do it to get in line. As she didn't know how to get her meal, he offers to go there to get it for her. When he enters the kitchen, he ends up seeing that blue-haired boy poisoning the food. He already shouts at the time that that is Lu's comrade. The boy is at a loss to understand how Feng had recognized him, being that in fact only the little mask there didn't disguise anything. Now that he had been exposed, he would give our hero a beating and take revenge since the last fight. So he starts to go on top of our hero in an attempt to get a rematch. The two had a quite equivalent power, and they start an open exchange between them. The masked man says that this time he won't lose, and that defeat was quite humiliating. Feng ends up landing a blow and launching him far away. He reveals that he has exercised to get even more powerful and protect Chuxia Ye. When he's about to give a secret blow, the masked boy manages to dodge and immobilizes our hero. Feng had a device that alerted Chuxia of an attack. However, he couldn't press the button because he was immobilized. At that moment, a girl knocks on the door, who ends up entering the back of the kitchen. It was Tongfei. She gets surprised to see her brother. They were quite similar. It was she who was this guy's sister. They didn't get along very well, and when she realizes that her brother discovered him, he gives a kick to Feng, launching him far away. The girl gets worried about her crush. She runs over there to see if he's okay. However, his arm was quite injured. If it weren't for her, he would have gotten even more beat up. Chuxia Ye is in the dining hall waiting for the food, and that boy passes by her running. She already realizes that something wrong is happening because of Fenggui's injury. Tongfei takes him to the infirmary. A quite strange doctor was attending Feng and says that he will leave to buy some French fries. The evil one with the blue hair goes there to see if the boy was okay, and she was very worried about him. The girl wanted to know if he knew that other blue-haired boy. However, he says that he has never seen him. She was a little serious because that boy was her brother. Feng even mentions this, saying that he heard of her calling that boy a little brother. Tongfei tries to disguise it, saying that she didn't say anything like that. When she observes some tangerines on the table, she already goes right ahead offering them to Feng. She was very worried. She didn't want in any way for him to find out that that boy was her brother. Sometime later, she said that she will leave to buy more tangerines, to him. At that moment, Chuxia Ye also appears. She asks why his class representative was there in the room. The boy was choking because of the tangerines. Soon after Chuxia, she peels that fruit for him. She starts to put it in Feng's little mouth. He thanks her. She keeps saying that now she needs a reward. He didn't know what kind of reward she would like, and she keeps making that face of hers there. This leaves our master there worried, so he changes the subject, saying that that blue-haired boy was wanting to put something in the food. Chuxia realizes right away that he was fleeing from her attempt to flirt. She mentions that she already resolved the issue of this blue-haired boy. She ended up following him from the outside. The headmistress was dripping some eye drops. Soon after, she enters crying quite false, making the biggest scene. However, at that moment, she ends up catching our hero red-handed, being fed by Chuxia Ye. She throws herself on the ground and keeps making the biggest drama. She adjusts the question, what kind of relationship does she have with Feng, since she was making all this drama? At that moment, our hero starts to shout, saying that he doesn't have anything more with the headmistress. Then the headmistress, she keeps provoking, saying that the boy, he had a wedding arranged with her daughter, and even a days that she combined this with Feng's mother as soon as he was born. Our protagonist realizes that he is screwed, because Chuxia, she would get very jealous. Exactly, that's what happens. The girl keeps saying that she didn't know that Feng King was engaged. He said that it's nothing like that the headmistress was lying in a strange way. The headmistress really liked him a lot. She keeps saying that now she has a rival. Meanwhile, Feng tried to explain himself to the girl, but she didn't want to listen. Changing the subject, the headmistress said that the foods were poisoned, and if the students ate, there was a risk of acquiring food poisoning. However, it was almost lunchtime, and the students were already going to the dining hall to have lunch. However, they couldn't simply say that they didn't have lunch, since the headmistress, she was suffering pressure from the student council. Outside that, the students would get furious if there was no lunch. The headmistress even asked Feng what he would do if he were in this situation. Our protagonist, he says that if there were no lunch, he would get furious and destroy everything. The headmistress keeps calling his attention, telling him not to be so scandalous like this. At that moment, they start to devise some plan to try to delay the students. Then Chuxia, she has a brilliant idea. She says that she will resolve it in her way. She makes a call and seems that she was hiring an agency. The headmistress asks what kind of thing she was planning. She says that it is just a distraction. At that moment, a truck stops in the schoolyard. Several workers leave from inside there. They had organized an event and had brought some actors. They famous were actors who were playing roles of a quite famous soap opera that the girls there at the school followed. When they see that those actors are there, they get totally in love. Most of them say that they will leave to go to the dining hall later, that they will go there to try to get an autograph. The news that these actors would attend there at Chongyang College starts to spread in the WhatsApp groups, and the people start to pass these messages to everyone. In this general way, in the school everyone knew. Some of the students even ask if by chance they will have lunch or go there to take a photo with these famous ones. The evil one with the red hair, she keeps inviting her friend there to go there to try to take a photo. The boys, they didn't know these actors. Then the evil one with the pink hair starts to explain who they are. That friend of our protagonist keeps saying that these actors aren't a big deal. The girl with kitten ears hits him on the head. Chuxia Ye's plan had seemed to be really working. Several students go there to the courtyard outside, and meanwhile, Feng was getting changed. Now that he was wearing the chef's clothes, he said that he will resolve this issue and will cook for everyone in the school. The actors, they arrive there in the gym. They start to present themselves. That was being a grandiose spectacle, and 4 of the most famous actors from all over China were there at Chongyang College. The girl with the swords was there outside organizing the event. 2 students comment that the dining hall must be empty, so they start to walk there. One of Chuxia Ye's employees calls there for her young lady and comments that a group of students is heading to the dining hall. She said that the colleague Feng he was giving his best to finish lunch before, but she didn't know if there would be time. And meanwhile, the poor of our hero was there doing 1,000 things at the same time. Several delicious dishes were getting ready, but it still wasn't enough. The news that some of the students were heading there to the dining hall reaches the kitchen, and they start to get desperate. Feng didn't know what he could do that would be ready quickly. Then he has the idea of making fried rice. He uses all his skills to prepare this dish. As soon as the event ends, all the students start to walk to the dining hall. He had only finished the fried rice and some other dishes, and it wouldn't be enough for all the students to eat. At that moment, the scene changes to the people of that evil organization. They were trying to do everything to stage a coup there at that director. Mariah receives the news that the poisoning didn't work. However, the good news is that they wouldn't have food to serve during lunch. That old man comments that if there is no food in the dining hall, all the students would complain, and therefore it would be the reason to take the director from her position. The situation was so critical that even Chuxia Ye was helping. This leaves our hero a little admired. The girl tells him to concentrate in the kitchen because she would help in the restaurant. He thanks her. He starts to imagine that she isn't as spoiled as he thought. That old man who was together with Moria, he was part of the Grand Council of the Chongna group. He had gone to the dining hall to try to take the director from her position, imagining that that college would be a chaos. But when he arrives there, all the students were eating that delicious food. No one was complaining, and very much the opposite. They were praising. The students even took photos and posted them on the social network, saying that the lunch was delicious. In that, the old man already starts to wonder what the heck was happening. The director, who is already suspecting this guy, she appears and asks why he was interested in visiting the dining hall today. In a quite cynical way, he keeps saying that it seemed that today there were different dishes. The director confirms that yes. She asks if he would like to try them, and meanwhile Amor would be there smelling the delicious smell. The old man said that he would go to the kitchen to see if everything was right and if they were following the safety and cleaning rules. The headmistress said that everything was fine and it invites him to enter. Meanwhile, Morio is being guided by the good smell. The old man starts to look at all the corners of this kitchen looking for spoiled food. He asks where was the soup. The headmistress explains that today there is no soup but rather a food prepared by a special chef. The old man had noticed that there was a truck outside the school, so he realized that Chuxia Ye had resolved everything. He looks at the girl and she was lying down resting next to Feng, so he asks, Who was this boy next to Miss Aye? The headmistress says that it was thanks to this master chef that the school wasn't without a meal. The old man had already given up on trying to incriminate the headmistress. He says that he will leave. He realized that this Feng was a danger because he was always disrupting the plans of this evil organization. On the way to leave, he asked the spy, Moria, what she was doing. The girl was there eating this delicious food. Lan, the sister of our protagonist. She recognizes that this food was prepared by Feng. She sent the message there to him asking if by chance it was him who cooked. Back in the office there, the director of the Chang'an company, he tries to investigate a little more about Feng. He ends up grabbing some folders containing some files. He was looking for something that would incriminate our hero. It seemed that finally he had found something that could save his plan. The two were sleeping together. Little by little, Feng's waking up. As soon as he wakes up, he moves his head, and this makes Chuxia wake up startled. He gives a jump back, asking if she had woken up. The girl keeps provoking him, asking if by chance he is afraid of touching her. Last night he wasn't afraid at all. At that moment, the headmistress ends up making a noise. What Chuxia just said sounded a little bad. The headmistress asks if they were already so intimate to be sleeping together. Feng tries to explain, saying to the headmistress that it's nothing like that. Chuxia kept provoking, saying that Feng he was a little cruel in bed. This girl here is terrible, folks. Again, the headmistress throws herself on the ground, making the biggest drama. I don't know what's worse. Chuxia giving these pickup lines to our protagonist or the headmistress who is really in love with him, reminding you that Feng he was still a bit flaccid, so he couldn't do much. Soon after, he asked Tia Song of this headmistress if she had discovered about the people who poisoned the soup. She says that she doesn't know where they put this poisoned food. Chuxia says that she asked her laboratory to investigate that soup and discover what kind of poison was used. She starts praising the group there, saying that they are always one step ahead. They ask if he had a clue of someone who poisoned that soup. He knew that it was Tongfei's brother. That's why he keeps quiet. He doesn't say anything to Song. She was worried, saying that they needed to discover this as quickly as possible because the health of the students was at stake. She explains that this is linked to a secret organization that wants to end Chang'an College, but she doesn't know very well why they are interested in doing this. As Chux's family had participation in the company that managed Chang'an College, she said that she would try to discover more about this. However, it seemed that it was a secret organization that was acting from the outside and was trying to harm everyone. You don't change to that office of the organization. A blue-haired boy was asking why they didn't tell him that his sister studied at Chang'an College. The girl says there to Ling not to keep worrying about this, because it would interfere with his mission. The guy kept complaining. Then the girl gives a threatening look and ends up asking if he would like her to eliminate his little sister. He starts to tremble, realizing that the hole was much deeper. So, he says that he doesn't want to get involved with his sister and asks for them to change him to another mission. This woman, who seems to be quite important, she said that she'll relocate him to another place. And when he leaves outside, Amoria was there trying to hear everything. The girl asks how he will react now that he has failed in the mission. Linda asks why he got so nervous for having seen his sister there at school. He said that Tongfei, his sister, she doesn't know that he is working for this organization, and if she knew, she would get very disappointed. Amore, she hugs her colleague. She says that it's only him changing sector. She ends up calling him to have lunch together, and she said that she would pay. At that same moment, in that office room, that girl ends up calling an old man. This was Mr. Dong, that old man there who had gone to the dining hall to search everything. The girl tells him to speak right away and stop messing around. The old man said that he has a plan that will make Ling Song happy. The girl, this Ling Zogs, she continues angry, telling the old man to spit it out soon. He said that he found something that could incriminate Feng, that boy who was disrupting their plans. After he tells his plan to this girl, she said that this could really help them. Soon after, she ends up hanging up the phone. She still comments that this so-called Feng King had something special. This organization there is quite mysterious. Folks, comment there for us. What do you think that they are planning? On the other hand, Feng, he was just there sleeping during the classes. His friend wakes up, saying that they already need to leave. Our protagonist was very tired, since he cooked a lot, and even saved the school from a poisoning. One of Feng's friends asks if by chance they studied for the exams that were about to come. That conceited one keeps saying that he will do very well in these tests, since he is very intelligent. Girl with kitten ears asks if Feng is doing well in these last tests. He ends up lying, saying that he was doing very well. In fact, his grades were below average. They keep talking about these grades. The girl said that she didn't believe him. At that moment, she approaches very close to Feng's ear. She asks if it was him who made that fried rice in the dining hall, since she recognized his food. The boy keeps saying no, that it wasn't him. The girl doesn't believe it. She says that they have been friends for quite some time and that she recognizes the seasoning that he always uses. So, as not to make it too obvious that it was him who helped, he ends up disguising it, saying that he will return to the dormitory because he had something to resolve. While his friends argued there in the back to see who would get the best grade, the girl with kitten ears keeps saying that she will let it pass this time. She won't mind that he lied. Feng was all worn out, dying of back pain. He keeps saying that he'll arrive home and rest playing Pro Vidi. Whoever played this game here around 2010s knows that this here was a fever. Everyone played this game. However, when poor Feng arrives there at his dormitory, he comes across something strange. The entire place was undergoing a renovation and was cordoned off. He decides to call the headmistress, and the woman there keeps asking if by chance it's an angel who called her. Feng told her to stop making jokes and tell him right away what is happening with the dormitory. She keeps messing around and doesn't want to talk, so he starts to shout with his teacher. In fact, the place was undergoing a renovation with Chuxia Ye's company. It wouldn't be possible for anyone to sleep there in that building. At that moment, Chuxia ends up appearing. He asks again what the heck was happening. She says that all the dormitories are undergoing a renovation. Her house is also undergoing a renovation since it was attacked, and that's why now she would sleep at Feng's house. She's literally the richest girl there at the school. She could rent in an entire hotel for her, but no, she will sleep at our hero's house, Feng's. He was a little afraid of her and was hoping that his parents would refuse for the girl to sleep there at his house. She asks what the heck he is plotting. He says that he is only worried about his parents and that there's a chance of them not accepting her to sleep there. However, she had already planned everything and even says that she always gets everything that she wants. At that moment, they end up arriving at Feng's house. She stays there pressing the boy to enter right away. I don't understand very well why he's so fussy with Chuxia Ye, but he was praying there for his parents not to let her stay. As soon as he arrives, he advises his parents that he had returned home. His parents were watching a little soap opera and ask what it was that Feng was doing at home. However, when he appears with a girl by his side, his parents already get startled asking if this was his girlfriend. She said yes, so they started to shout. She says that her house was undergoing an urgent renovation and that's why she would like to stay at her boyfriend's house. She ends up handing over gold member cards from her tourism company. She says that Feng's parents could travel all over the world. Everything that they spent would already be included in this package. At that moment, they already accept for the girl to sleep at their house together with their son. They even end up thanking Feng for having arranged a rich girlfriend. That way they already leave for the trip and already go straight to the Maldives. Feng stays there telling his parents to return. He didn't believe that he would serve as a bargaining chip and the girl really got what she wanted. I told you that she was always one step ahead. At that moment, Lan ends up returning and advises her parents that she had arrived. However, the house was quite a racket, and when she enters she comes across Chuxia Ye. The two stay staring at each other. Feng gets very worried because he knew that his sister would feel jealous and Ye keeps giving that shameless laugh of hers. Lan asks, "Who the heck is this girl who is in your house?" Feng explains there to Chuxia Ye that there was his younger sister. At the same time, he didn't know what to tell his sister there, to explain that there was a girl who would live with them. Chuxia, she introduces herself as Feng's girlfriend, leaving the boy there even more worried. He gives a little excuse, saying that they are not dating. Lan, she didn't want to know anything. She was only asking if her parents had agreed with this. He explains that Chuxia gave a card there, and they traveled. Lan had already understood everything. Her parents were bought with money and she ends up leaving to the room a little sullen. At that moment, the two then end up staring at each other. Lan runs to the room and slams the door quite sullen. Chuxia comments that her boyfriend doesn't have a very good relationship with his sister. With a discouraged face, he reveals that he isn't a good older brother. However, Chuxia says that this is a lie. She knows Feng very well. She knows that he would be a good older brother and that something must have happened for her to act this way. On the other hand, Lan, she was sullen. She was making a crying face that it even gives pity. Later, Feng had prepared dinner for them. He ends up asking them to try it. The guy was a true master chef. Lan is feeling the delicious taste of his food. She even comments that he is a great cook. The boy keeps saying that he always liked to cook. She still says that from now on she will eat all of his foods. She doesn't wait for the time to try all the recipes. This was leaving Lan a little sullen, since she was jealous. So she ends up getting up and says that she is finished. Feng comments that she barely touched the food. She whispers saying that attitude of his was being irritating. The boy hadn't heard. He keeps asking his sister to repeat it. As soon as Lan leaves, Chuxia Ye comments that probably they got along well in the past, but that they argued recently. She keeps imagining that Lan is only like this because of jealousy. She doesn't know what really had happened. The next day early, the protagonist arrives quite tired. He comments that it cost him to convince Chuxia to sleep in the parents' room. The girl wanted to sleep together with Feng, but that idiot there didn't want to let her. At that moment, his friends ended up appearing, asking if he had studied for the tests. They commented that today would be an intense day, with a lot of exams. However, Feng had forgotten. He ends up falling to the floor there, saying that he hadn't remembered. They ask why he forgot such an important exam. Feng gives an excuse, saying that this little test won't shake him. He'll get a 10 on all the tests. These friends leave laughing, saying that Feng is very funny. Then finally, the time for the Chinese exam arrived. Our protagonist starts to give his best to take the test and get everything right. However, the questions were very difficult. He keeps trying to convince himself that he'll do well. When the test ends, he was extremely tired. However, it hadn't finished yet. The math test was missing. He starts to give his best, but he wasn't understanding anything. He even comments that the equations have more letters than numbers. After the math test, the time for the English test arrived, and there were more 3 hours of test. 12 hours had passed. He finally finished all the tests. His friends leave, commenting about who did better. They even stay saying there that the test wasn't that difficult. Neko asks Feng there how he did. He said that he answered all the questions. He felt that it wasn't that bad. However, his friends keep telling him to accept reality. Our protagonist keeps arguing, telling them to trust in his talent. Then they remind Feng that he didn't do well in the last tests at all, and that he got a red grade in all of them. The boy starts to get discouraged because his friends kept throwing the truth in his face. Neko even asks if he would like her to remember his grades from last year. He keeps telling her to stop. 2 days later, the teachers would hand over the result of the tests. They start to pass one to the others the test with the result. When Feng looks at that grade, he gets a little startled. He tries to check to all sides if no one had seen his grade, and the girls start to comment that they didn't do as well as they imagined. That's why Feng, he already felt a little relieved, imagining that he wasn't the only one who got low grades. That way, everyone starts to ask Feng how much he got, since everyone was curious. When his friend takes his test, he starts to laugh. Scene changes to the meeting room where we see the headmistress presenting the grades of the students. That old man Dong that he was trying to disrupt the school. He comments that there's a student from the second year who's disrupting the grade of all the students. The headmistress says that the second year was really going through a difficulty, but that this will improve at that moment. The old man ends up grabbing a material inside a folder. He said that he analyzed the grades of all the students from the second year. Room B, that really had a student who was disrupting all the rest. He says that the girls who became friends of the student had lower grades. He ends up hitting his hand on the table, saying that this is the teacher's fault. He says that headmistress Song, she called the student to the school, and that he is being a stumbling block. The advisors there from Chongna, they keep saying that this can end with the reputation of the school. The headmistress knew that they were talking about Feng and said that he really had bad grades. He was a person who brought positive things to the school. The advisors say that these positive things aren't enough and that he needs to be eliminated from the school. However, the headmistress, she didn't want this to be done. Then the guy says that he has a proposal. He would like to unify the male school Chongyan with the female school. This leaves the headmistress startled. She said that this wouldn't be very good. Meanwhile, the other advisors keep agreeing. She faces this as a betrayal. Manager Dong asks if she has any obstruction. However, as everyone was against her, the headmistress couldn't do anything. At that moment, Ranel was outside listening to everything and she runs to gossip. To the other students, you'll see why no one wanted the male school to unite with the female school. The guys there, they were the true demons. The people were laughing at Feng's grade. When the evil one with red hair goes to grab the grade of our protagonist, she also keeps giving some laughs. She was laughing quite a bit. Ole, she also gets curious to know what grade he got. In Chinese, he had gotten 40, in math 30, and in English, he got 15. Feng wasn't understanding anything because he heard that the girls had also gotten low grades. However, they explained that the low grade for her was very different, because they got on average 80 and 75. He gets extremely furious, saying that they are a bunch of idiots who were deceiving him. However, Feng, he ends up falling to the ground very discouraged, since he had the worst grade of everyone. Tong Fei, she wasn't wanting to show her grade there, so the girls go there and take her test. They start to see there how much she got. Really, she had also gotten low grades, but it was around 65 and 50. She was formerly the best student in the room. Everyone keeps asking why her grades dropped. She says that lately she was very worried about some personal issues that we know as Feng. At that moment, a student ends up appearing there, and it was Renil. She was quite desperate. Everyone asks why she was running. Then she explains that the directors wanted to unite the female school together with the male school. Tong Wei, she keeps saying that this isn't very good, since the male college has a not very good reputation. The guys there, they were true demons. Feng keeps saying that the female college isn't very different from that, no. However, unlike the female college, the male college had a certain gang, let's say. Everything was nothing more than rumors, so they decide to go there and spy on the school. There in the back, they keep celebrating, saying that this idea of espionage is very good. Feng keeps saying that he will go there to talk with the headmistress. The scene changes again to the headquarters of that organization. That pink-haired girl was talking with a guy. They were behind the unification of these two schools. She ends up handing over this card to the man, saying that he will get in contact with the director. He managed to catch the card in the air. He thanks her. She gets up, saying that she has nothing more to deal with him. Now she will talk with Lingzong. However, he asks for permission. He would like to know why he wouldn't have talked more with Mr. Liu, and he would only talk with her from now on. The girl tells him to forget about Mr. Liu and that probably he'll never see him again. We know that it's because Liu left this for better. I don't know about you. I think that this girl was someone there from the school. The scene changes to the director's room. She was talking with Sang. He was kneeling asking for forgiveness, and she told him that this unification of the schools is because of his bad grades. He kept kneeling asking for her forgiveness, saying that he will try to improve. She said that she talked with all the directors of the Changnan group, but that she couldn't convince them to change their minds. Then he asked there, a little sweating, why would it be so bad to unite with a male college? She says that that male college is evil and that besides everything he wouldn't win anymore, the scholarship that he needed so much. All this was his fault. The boy should take on his responsibilities. That way he leaves quite crestfallen, knowing that if he can't improve the grades, the college will unite and he will stop winning the scholarship. While Chuxia was entering her room, she ends up finding a little letter fallen on the floor. It was a letter directed to her arranging a meeting at the top of that college. That way, she goes to the terrace. When she arrives there, she finds this girl who arranged this meeting. She keeps saying that she already expected this. Who was there was Tong Fei. She was saying that she would like to know about a subject. Who was there was Tong Fei. She said that she wanted to know something from Chuxia. She found out that Chuxia found the boy who had poisoned that food. She still asks if she really followed that boy, and if she could pass information about him. Chuxia asks why she is interested in this person. She says that she has personal reasons. Chuxia said that if she really didn't want to talk, she could leave it at that. However, she would like to know something before. Tong Fei said that she could help with anything that Chuxia wanted. She could ask any question. Chuxia wanted to know something very important. Tong Fei gets worried about what this will be. She said that Fei couldn't lie. She should tell the truth. Then Chuxia asks what she thinks of Feng. She said that Feng had an indecent behavior, but that he was a good person. Chuxia asks if it was only that. Tong Fei says yes. However, Chuxia had already seen that she had a strong friendship with Feng, and that's why she would like her to tell even more in a somewhat shy way. She says that in fact, when he arrived at the college, she treated Feng very badly. However, little by little, she was discovering that he was a very good person. Then, now she was trying to fix everything bad that she had already done. In an excited way, she says that as class representative, her responsibility is to take care of her classmates. All that emotional phrase convinced Chuxia that really Tong Fei was a good friend, and that she wasn't interested romantically in Feng. At that moment, she snaps her fingers. One of her employees ends up releasing it from up there. She asks her employee to accept everything that they discovered about that blue-haired boy. After some time, she had already discovered everything and thanks Chuxia for having really passed the true information. Tong Fei leaves. Her employee asks why Chuxia decided to tell her everything. The girl replies that in fact she would have told this so that Tong Fei wouldn't keep bothering trying to disrupt. At that moment, another employee appears. The blonde girl asks the green-haired girl if she thought that Miss Chuxia had judged that Tong Fei in a wrong way. The green-haired girl thinks that no, that she agrees with Chuxia that the girl really has no romantic interest in Feng. However, recently she has had a bad feeling. The scene changes to a little later there in Music Buds, where Neko was eating a delicious food. She was together with her friend Alan, and they were trying different foods there. She had called Lan to try to cheer the girl up, since she was more sullen than ever. Neko keeps provoking, saying that in fact she likes her big brother a lot, that's why she was jealous. She comments that she didn't expect Chuxia there to take the initiative of living together with Feng, and even comments that the people from the AE group were really very eccentric. However, Alan, she keeps commenting there that she isn't liking any of this, since the two keep flirting near her. Nico keeps provoking her friend, saying that she was dying of jealousy. Alan was angry, saying that in fact her brother had killed Yao, and that she wouldn't forgive him. She decides to ask something to her friend. She asks if she really believes that her brother killed Yao. Neko says that she doesn't believe it. Since Feng was a good person, he wouldn't do this type of thing. However, folks, he never denies that he killed this girl. But Neko says that even that day she didn't believe that Feng would be capable of something like that. However, he would have some reason not to tell the truth. Alan asks if by chance it would have something to do with her, and that in fact that her brother was trying to protect her. Neko keeps teasing, saying that probably yes, and that in fact Feng did all this to protect his dear little sister. And this leaves Lan embarrassed. Lan, she wanted her brother's attention, since now he was only giving attention to Chusia Ye. That's why Neko, she says that she has a brilliant idea. Later, Feng ends up returning home, and there was his sister to receive him. She had changed her hairstyle. This leaves Feng a little startled, since she never changed her hairstyle there on her hair. He even asks if something had happened. She says no, she just decided to change her look in a somewhat curious way. He keeps asking if something happened to her that left her upset. She said that yes, something left her very angry. It had worked, she managed to call the attention of her brother and ends up entering inside the room. She even starts to think that, in fact, her brother had really done something to protect her, and that he was trying to hide it only so that things wouldn't complicate. After dinner, our protagonist was there with Chusia Jia studying. He couldn't stop thinking about his sister's new hairstyle. Chusia asks what the heck he's thinking about, since he was distracted. He says that it wasn't anything, that he was only lost there in his own thoughts. And poor Chusia? She stays tricked, thinking that, in fact, Feng was thinking about her beauty. The scene changes again to Friday after the classes. Tongwei, she was excited to go there to spy on the male college. The evil one with pink hair asks if by chance, in fact, she was interested in the boys. Tongwei gets all delighted there, saying that they are charming and that they are bad boys. She seemed to be really very interested. Her friends there are getting credulous. Nanong decided to use her powers of divination to see if really that people from the male college were evil. The girl ends up calling Feng. He was very tired. He turns around asking what she would like. The girl says that she would like to eat a golden cake and asks him to buy it for her because she's very tired. He didn't want to go, but she insists. Then he says that he will go there to get it. He says that these girls are very lazy and that they keep exploiting his kindness. At that moment, he realizes that there is a commotion right ahead. The girls were surrounded by a bunch of rowdies. It was his evil friends. They were saying that 4 girls from Chongna College were infiltrated in their area. The guy was saying that the girl ended up ruining his clothes and that's why she would have to pay. However, the value that he demands was of 5,000, saying that his clothes were very, expensive, and they were feeling threatened. Feng had arrived to help them. He says that he finally found his friends and that he was looking for them. Holding there in Wei's arm, he says that they need to leave because they're late. The guy keeps saying that they can't go. In fact, the girls ruined his clothes. Feng says that he will leave to pay another day. The guy gets extremely furious upon looking at Feng's face. He ends up recognizing him. He said that in fact Feng had beaten him some time ago. This is the guy who was beaten by Feng there at the beginning of the story. He keeps giving an evil laugh, saying that now the time for his revenge has arrived. He prepares to give a punch to Feng. Our hero blocks that attack without much difficulty. He still mentions that he would like to resolve everything in a peaceful way, but that this will be impossible. Upon seeing that he wasn't going to be able to close the fight of 1-1-1 with Feng, he already calls his henchmen. The kid's running after Feng to assault him. We know that our protagonist is tough. He starts to dodge all the attacks and counterattacks in a powerful way. The purple-haired boy starts to see stars. Even using pieces of wood, they can't hit Feng. Little by little, he is giving a beating to everyone. The redhead ends up badly. Besides taking a punch in the face, Feng also grabs him. He throws him on top of another guy. What could be resolved with a simple conversation ended up turning into a brawl. Here, Bully starts to tremble with fear. When he realizes that all of his friends were injured, he starts to apologize. Feng says that this guy is a coward. He keeps begging for forgiveness and asks our hero not to hit him. At that moment, one of his comrades takes a baseball bat. He starts to go on top of Feng. A Wei-sun starts to shout for Feng to be careful. Looking to the side, he had already realized that the attack was about to come. He ducks at the last instant. That hit ends up hitting the bully's face. Soon after, Feng gives a kick in the lower areas. That way, he defeated all those bullies. He asked the girls if they were okay. They were in love, saying that Feng was a very strong guy. They say that they will reward him paying for a drink. Poor our hero ended up forgetting Nanong's snack there. The guy never does anything right. He always leaves something behind. They had taken our protagonist to a bar. He gets a little surprised, not imagining that they would take him there. Tongwei, she asks our protagonist to wait, because she would go to the bathroom. He keeps asking Zhao Shu there. And what is she going to do? The girl keeps saying that women have secrets. Evil one with red hair. Xiao Shu, she will tell our protagonist there what happened. Why they were caught there by those evil from the boys. They had arrived at the male college Chongyan, IA to find the Chu. and she was quite excited to try to spy on the boys. However, it's Wei Wei. She keeps saying that it's a little dangerous. They should spy without entering inside there. She was a hacker. She had brought with her a notebook and a drone. She presents there to her friend the strategy that they would use to discover information about the college. It would be much easier to use technology than to enter there as true spies. That way she puts the drone to fly over the college. They manage to see all the facilities at the college. She still says that the drone was equipped with a hacker Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. They start to direct the drone inside the school. They end up passing through a window that was open. They were looking for the school's server, at least something that she would incriminate to be able to present to the headmistress. Meanwhile, the evil one there with red hair was all excited, she who is very horny, and was liking the idea of studying with more boys. However, when they enter inside the college, they get startled, because it looked more like a prison than a school. The walls were all vandalized. That wasn't anything legal. After walking through all the hallways, they finally found the system. They would try to hack to get more information, and without many difficulties, Wei Wei, she manages to enter the system. She says that the firewall was very weak. That's why she managed to enter without many difficulties. She starts to install a virus to be able to steal all the information. However, at that moment, a group of boys starts to pass near the drone. They see that machine flying over the hallway. They start to wonder, what the heck was that? When the girls realize that they were discovered, they get in shock. Without thinking twice, they start to chase that little drone. The girls start to get desperate, because they couldn't be discovered. The download still hadn't finished. They were running against time. If they left from near the server, they would lose contact. They couldn't download the information. However, there was no more way. They start to run at full speed. The drone wasn't very fast. They shout there for the friend who was playing ball to give a kick in that drone. He raises the ball and ends up kicking, and that way he hits the drone. The girls lose control, and when they run to try to flee the scene of the crime, they end up bumping into that boy. That bump ends up tearing off the button of his shirt. That way, Feng discovered the whole story that led up to that moment. Xiao Shui, who was excited with the idea of studying with boys, now she was completely the opposite. Saying that they are ominous, she still says that that school is very weird. At that moment, Wei Wei ends up appearing. You see there that Feng had already heard the whole story. She had brought the drink. Feng gets a little startled. She was dressed as a bartender or a bar girl. I don't know how to say it. She said that in fact this bar was her house and she attended there at the end of the week. Her friend in the back keeps saying that Wei Wei, she is very popular. Upon looking there at the girl, he realizes that really she should be very popular upon looking at his shameless face. She says that she isn't popular for being pretty, but rather for the delicious drinks. He ends up trying that drink that she prepared. He gets enchanted, saying that it really was very tasty. She says that that is a secret technique of her family. Feng keeps asking if it had an alcohol. She says that it doesn't have alcohol. It is a mixture of soda with juice. Besides being great at making drinks, she was also like an incredible hacker. Feng gets all excited with this idea of hacking the system, imagining that it would be possible to change his grades. Tong Wei, she comments that she managed to grab some of the data from that Chang'an college and wanted to try to decode them later. Among the files that she managed to download, there were also several videos. She keeps saying that she could use them to be able to change the opinion of the directors there. However, it was being a little difficult to decode this many files, and there was a chance of her not being able to do this. Feng gets a little disappointed. Later they say goodbye. I think Chuxia and keeps saying that she'll root for her friend to manage to decode all those files. On the way to leave, Feng, he comments that he is forgetting something, and it's Nanong's food folks. He ended up forgetting it there on the floor. The scene changes to a quite womanizing guy. Someone ends up knocking on his door and he says to enter. A guy appears calling him president and says that Lurengia was there and had important things to report. Lurengia is that guy who took a beating from our hero. The president? This blonde guy already knows that this isn't good news. He looked like a king, but in fact he was president of Chang'an College. He discovers that a student called Feng from the female college ended up hitting the people from the male college there. And this guy's name was Chunli. He was the president of the male college Chang'an. He told Lurengia to shut his mouth and stop talking nonsense. The vice president, Zhang Shen, he says that this guy there who got beaten was a complete coward. He says that Lurengia was worthless because he doesn't conclude the missions. However, he keeps asking there for the president to give him another chance because he would accomplish the mission, and that way the president said that he could try one more time and that he would give this chance to him. The vice president asks if he did the correct action. The president says that yes, and that in fact they were needing more personnel. We don't know very well what the male college was planning, but it didn't seem to be something very good, no. Before leaving, the president asks Zhang to investigate this so-called Feng that everyone was talking about. He ends up receiving this important mission. The The president was excited, since there was a student in the female college who was causing problems. He comments that this was very curious. Zange wonders, why did the president give that important mission to Laurenjia, being that it was always him who took care of missions of this level? Feng he was sleeping and ends up waking up there with his cell phone ringing. It was the evil one with red hair. When he answers, the girls ask where he was. He had arranged to study with them and remembers this the night before. They said that they would help him to improve his grades, and that's why they would arrange a study group for him. He ends up disguising it, saying that he was already arriving at the agreed location, which was a library. He still comments for them to go ahead. However, Tongfei, she wouldn't be able to go to the library because it was far from her house. That's why they decided to go study at Feng's house. He still comments for him to return to his house. However, he still hadn't left home. If by chance they arrived and discovered that he was there, they would get furious. At that moment, they start to knock on the door. He runs to try to disguise it. His sister was going there to answer the door. Then he covers her mouth, telling her to be quiet. She asks what is happening. He explains that the girls from his class came to his house to study, but that they couldn't know that he was still at home. His sister keeps asking if by chance girls will come, and they start to give punches on the door. Then he has a brilliant idea and ends up jumping there through the window, pretending that he was arriving home. They were outside and keep wondering if by chance our protagonist still hasn't arrived. He appears running, giving a lap in the building, and still comments that he returned home running. As soon as he received the call, Tong Wei, she looks down. She realizes that he was wearing the slippers. She realized that he was lying and that in fact he only jumped to the window and gave a lap in the block. However, she pretends that she doesn't know about this, and keeps asking if his parents are home. He comments that they are traveling, Xiao Shu, and keeps provoking, saying that colleague Feng is living alone. He comments that he wasn't alone, because Chu Xie was working in his company. He hadn't realized it, but he had revealed the secret. The girls already keep provoking, saying that his relationship was already very advanced. Feng tries to explain himself, saying that it's nothing like what they're thinking. Nanong asks if he brought her cake by him. He had forgotten, folks. He left it there on the floor, and she keeps making that crying face. However, Feng, he was very dumb. He still hadn't connected to this. She comments that he forgot her cake. When he remembers that he had forgotten the cake on the floor, he gets a little startled and apologizes. The poor girl keeps saying why he had forgotten her little cake. In fact, it wasn't a cake, folks. It was a kind of snack that there is there in China. He decides to order through iFood, but she gets sullen, saying that now there is no need for Wei Wei anymore. She asks where is the bathroom. He said that he would take her there. She reveals that she brought something that would stimulate him to study a little more. You already keep thinking there about what will this be. The girls sit at the table and prepare the place for studies. Lan doesn't ask why they decided to study with Feng. They reveal that it is here that his grade is very low. At that moment, Tong Wei ends up appearing. She was dressed as a teacher. She says that if he were a good student, he would win a reward. The shameless one from Feng and gets all showy, saying that he will give his best to receive this reward from teacher Wei Wei. However, as soon as the studies begin, he doesn't do very well. Then she uses all her seduction skills. She says that if he manages to get this question right, he'll win an incredible reward. He says that he isn't an indecent person. For her to control herself, however, he gives his best to get this question right. He gets quite anxious, asking Gu if he did well. However, teacher Wei Wei ends up tearing the test, saying that he had gotten everything wrong. She says that she chose some very simple questions, and even so, he couldn't get them right. Then, without shame, he keeps giving the excuse that it's because of his amnesia. He probably forgot that subject. It's looking like those people who pretend to have ADHD to keep throwing the responsibilities on top of the disease. Tongfei tells him to stop with this pretense of amnesia. Wei Wei says that they don't believe in this little game of his. Nanong reveals that she didn't tell anything, and the girls discovered Wei Wei on their own. She comments that only Tong Ving believes in this. In fact, she believed a lot in this. Then Feng, he throws himself on the ground, saying that he only pretended to have amnesia, to be able to get rid of the mistreatment of the evil ones. The girls comment that really it was their fault, this mistreatment, but they had already agreed to stop messing with him since the time of that excursion on the beach. He gets surprised, since he had been pretending to have amnesia this whole time. He even celebrates, saying that he doesn't need to be cautious anymore. He asks if all this acting that he did during these months was useless. Now he had realized that he ate that horrible food from Tongfei for nothing, since the girls already knew that he was pretending to have amnesia. However, it's Wei Wei. She explains that Tongfei always believed in this amnesia story, since she was quite worried about him. Michelle Xu even comments that she saw Tongfei looking for medical books about how to cure amnesia, which meant that she really was very worried about Feng. She could even be a little tough, but among all, she was the most sensitive. Really, she was very worried about Feng since she felt guilty. Tongwei keeps saying that all that acting of Feng ended up messing with Tongfei's psychology. She was even trying to fix these things. At that moment, the protagonist realized that he had stepped on the ball, since he messed with the feelings of a girl. He ends up revealing that he will tell her everything on Monday. That's why Tongwei, she says that she will give a reward to our hero. She ends up opening the button there of her shirt, showing everything to Feng. He keeps telling Tongwei to stop with this. When he goes there to ask her to close her clothes, he ends up tripping. Incredibly, Chuxia Ye arrives at that exact moment. Feng He was on top of Wei since he had tripped. Chuxia Ye comes across that scene seeing her dear crush on top of a girl. That scene was quite embarrassing. Chuxia Ye comments that Feng was very excited. Wei thinks this is very interesting. She starts to button up her shirt as if nothing had happened. The girls who were there observing that scene comment that this will be very legal. Our protagonist keeps trying to explain himself. Chuxia, she gives a smile there, trying to disguise it. She comments that when he goes to bring people, he should warn her. I think Shu and she said that Feng was very hospitable. Then Chuxia there goes there and hugs him quite clingy. She asks him to always warn her before when he's going to bring a visit, because that way she could help in the reception. She even starts to pinch our protagonist. Wei keeps trying to provoke the girl, saying that she will use her secret art. She tells Feng that they could continue from where they left off tomorrow. Chuxia asks, huh? Continue what? Wei comments that they could continue from where they left off. They are in the bar where they had met some days ago. This worsened the situation even more, showing to Chuxia that he was already meeting with these girls. Then they start to rival, fighting for Feng's attention. At that moment, he hits his hand on the table, calling the attention of all the girls in a quite friendly way. He asks if they would like to have dinner, and that he would prepare a delicious food. With the intent of escaping this situation, he runs to the kitchen. The girls comment that he ended up leaking. Wei keeps staring at Chuxia Ye, saying that now the fight would be serious. And with that, we wrap up another part of The Boy from the Girls' School. If you want me to bring more chapters from this amazing story, just drop a comment down below. That's it for now. Thanks a lot and see you next time, folks.